The arrogant teacher fell into his arms, and Mr. Kai fell in love with him. College students come to my house. Because of a sentence she hadn't finished, she was dragged into the room, and she couldn't stop from then on. During the day, she was a rigorous and meticulous teacher in the school. At night, she was a graceful and charming beauty with uncontrollable passion. She tried her best to escape, and he chased her. The more she escaped, the more entangled she became. Just when she thought that this life of entanglement would never end, a marriage certificate and a statement completely shattered her fantasy. Desire retreated, but it couldn't stop the cruelty of reality. She turned to leave, but the man's eyes were red, and he held her tightly in his arms, his voice low and lingering. "Teacher Fang, did I allow you to leave?" "Sorry, Mr. Kai, we are not familiar with each other." Chapter 1, College students come to your home for service. "Good boy, lift your cock up a little." "No, no more tilde." Fang Miao whimpered, but the other party did not stop. The new round of attack became fierce and passionate. The next morning, Fang Miao opened her eyes blankly, and it took her a long time to react to what happened. "Hello, college students come to your home for service." This was the first sentence she had not finished saying when she arrived at the door of their hotel room yesterday. Then she was pulled in by a pair of strong hands, her lips were sealed and her body was locked, a pair of hot hands wandered unscrupulously on her body, and she began to feel hot all over and dizzy. Before she went out, she drank her roommate's drink. Fang Miao's face changed slightly, and she immediately sat up from the bed. Tilde. The action was intense, she couldn't help but groan, and then her face turned red. How many times did it yesterday? She didn't remember, she only knew that she had never been so crazy in the first half of her life. She covered her lips, and the snow-white quilt slid down, revealing spots of marks. Almost reflexively, she raised her head suddenly. There was a sound of dripping water from the toilet. Fang Ni's eyes widened in disbelief. That man, he is still in the room. Realizing this, Fang Ni's head was dizzy. Without time to think too much, the sound of water from the toilet was like a death warrant. She got up in a panic and grabbed clothes everywhere, the short skirt on the sofa, the coat on the door handle. She endured the discomfort of her body, quickly put on her clothes, and rushed out of the room like she was running for her life. In the toilet, the man seemed to have noticed the movement. The door was opened, and the tall body was the first to come in. The man casually put the bath towel on his shoulders, and the length of the drooping towel almost covered the vital parts. Under the tufts of hair wet by the water, there was a pair of sharp and decisive eyes. The man raised his eyebrows slightly, looked around, and his eyes fell on a bright red plum blossom somewhere on the bed. After spending so much money, he just ran away like this. The man licked his lips with a hint of interest in his eyes. He walked forward slowly, ready to call their hotel customer service to find the surveillance, but stopped when his bare feet stepped on the soft carpet. He lowered his head and looked at a business card under his feet. College students come to the door. He moved his toes and revealed the last two words. Tutoring? A teacher. The man frowned, and the woman's slightly hesitant figure at the door emerged in his mind. She was holding the business card in both hands at the time, and didn't she say college student service? The thin lips were pursed into a straight line, and the man's face was not very good. Last night, his bad friends repeatedly mocked him for being a widower. In order to show off how rich his love history was, he instilled everything from small flowers in the entertainment industry to pure female college students. He was very impatient. Being urged to get married, he drank glass after glass of foreign liquor, which was mixed with a glass of something given by someone unknown. All he remembered in his mind was that his bad friend vowed to find him a female college student to serve him. The man rubbed his eyebrows and decisively called. Where is she? When the phone was connected, the man's voice was low and indifferent. The other party was stunned for a moment. Brother, I'm still in the land of gentleness at this point. You are single and have a stable schedule, don't think that everyone is the same as you. Please be kind and spare me this time. I really can't drink anymore. If I drink more, I won't be able to get it up. The man was not interested in knowing whether this playboy could get it up. He frowned slightly, realized something, and asked, What did you do last night? I sent you back to the hotel and left. How could I not know who you are? I booked the presidential suite for you, and the room is absolutely clean and tidy. Is this what he asked? The man hung up the phone mercilessly. His guess was confirmed. He squatted down and picked up the business card. At the same time, Fang Meng returned to the teacher's dormitory in a mess. Her clothes were wrinkled. As soon as she entered the door, the sharp-eyed Ruan Ying noticed something was wrong. "Oh, you didn't come back all night. You had a lot of fun." Fang Meng questioned, "What did you put in the drink you gave me?" Ruan Ying's eyes flickered. "What? Do you have evidence? Don't frame me." Fang Meng bit her lip and went into the bathroom without looking back. She had no evidence. The bottle of stuff had been taken away by the garbage after a night. At the door, Ruan Ying came up and shouted, "Tell me. Which man did you go out with yesterday? I thought you were so pure. So many men in college chased you, but you didn't seem to be moved. It's been so long since you graduated, and you can't bear the loneliness." The chattering voice came from the door, and Fang Meng clenched her teeth and pretended not to hear it. She looked at herself in the mirror, feeling embarrassed and ashamed. She could even smell the smell on her body that didn't belong to her. She had thought about being single for the rest of her life, but she had never thought about having such a random one-night stand. She took off all her clothes and washed herself inside and out, but the marks on her body still reminded her of what kind of madness happened last night. She tried to control herself from thinking about it, and then wrapped herself tightly. It seemed that as long as she couldn't see those marks, nothing had happened. But when her eyes fell on the clothes on the sink, she couldn't help blushing. She suppressed her anxiety and awkwardness, put the clothes in the washing basin, and scrubbed them carefully. Just then, a color that didn't belong to her suddenly fell out. She realized belatedly that she was too anxious to put on her clothes, and didn't even notice that she had rolled his underwear back. Fang Meng blushed instantly when she saw the men's underwear, which was more than twice as big as her own. At the door, Ruan Ying, who had not received a response for a long time, took out her mobile phone and gossiped with others. "Isn't it? The marks on her body must have been left there in one night. Which man can be so strong? There must be more than one. I heard before that she was short of money. She might be doing some shameful side job. TSK, 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 don't say it, her body might really let her sell it for a high price. At least 20,000 or 30,000, right? Har har har." The bathroom door was opened, and Fang Meng frowned and said angrily, "You like to gossip so much, why don't you be a tabloid paparazzi? Believe it or not, I can sue you for defamation based on what you just said." Ruan Ying's face turned pale and green. Fang Meng always behaved approachably, introverted and not talkative. No matter how loudly or how explicit she usually talked to others, Fang Ni never interrupted. Why did she act like a firecracker today? Is it that serious? I just made some reasonable guesses. Besides, I didn't spread it everywhere. You did something shameful yourself, and you don't allow others to talk about it. Fang Ni's eyes were red with anger, and she said angrily, "You are also a woman, you should know how important reputation is to a woman. You made up a dirty rumor about me, and you feel wronged." Chapter 2. Why bother to be a jerk? TSK, then you have the guts to explain how these ambiguous traces on your body came about. Why should I explain to you? Fang Ni walked past Ruan Ying and went to the balcony with the laundry basin. While hanging the clothes, the phone rang. Fang Ni's heart slowed down and she immediately took out her phone. "Doctor, is there something wrong with my mother?" "Miss Fang, your mother's medical expenses have been delayed for 3 days. Now your mother's condition is still stable, but if her medicine is not renewed, I'm afraid she won't be able to hold on." "I know. I will renew the money as soon as possible. Please take good care of my mother and never stop taking the medicine." Fang Ni hung up the phone after thanking her profusely. Ruan Ying couldn't help but sneer when she heard this. "If you are short of money, just tell me directly. For the sake of being roommates, I can help you a little. Why bother to be a jerk?" Fang Ni glared at Ruan Ying angrily. Ruan Ying immediately covered her mouth, as if she realized something, and said, "No way. You didn't get cheated for nothing and got nothing. TSK, 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 so pitiful. How about this, I'll donate money to help you. Is 200 enough? If not, 300 will do. Get out of the way." Fang Mayu frowned, pushed away Ruan Ying who was about to pay, and hurriedly left the dormitory. "My mother is now undergoing chemotherapy, and she needs a lot of medical expenses every day. She must find the medical expenses as soon as possible." She hesitated for a moment, took out her mobile phone, and called her best girlfriend. "Lingling, there is something I want to ask you. Can I borrow 10,000 yuan from you first? I will pay you back as soon as I get my salary later. Is your aunt's medical expenses owed again? A worried sigh came from the other side. Well, Lingling, I know it's not good to bother you all the time, but I don't have any other friends here. Fang Mayu lowered her head, feeling very guilty. Nian, it's not that I don't want to help you. You know I don't have a job now and I'm supported by others. Besides, I specially introduced Boss Zhao to you yesterday, but you. I introduced you to a job with good intentions, but you treated me like this. Even if I want to help you now, I can't do it. Thinking of everything that happened last night, Fang Nian turned pale and said weakly, I'm sorry. She knew Lingling was kind, but Boss Zhao was really not a good person. She didn't have the face to tell her about what happened yesterday. When she heard that she seemed to be busy, she hung up the phone. It was not good to trouble Lingling anymore. She could only ask if the school could give her an advance on her salary. Fang Nian opened WeChat on her mobile phone and found a friend request. My underwear was taken away by you. In an instant, Fang Nian blushed and knew who this friend request was from. She bit her lip, exited the application page, ignored the message, and retrieved the WeChat account of the finance department. After informing her of her demands, the finance department quickly replied. Fang Niang, the finance department cannot give you a backdoor every time. You have already received several advances on your salary since you came to school. Sorry, the finance department is not your private warehouse. I am afraid I cannot help you with this advance application. Fang Niang's heart sank, and the next second, the other party sent another message. But if you need money urgently, I can lend it to you personally. Let's talk about it in the evening at XX Hotel. Fang Niang is now very sensitive to the word hotel and immediately noticed the other party's intention. The attitude of the head of the finance department was very vague in the previous advances on salary. From the first initiative to help to the increasingly obvious hints later, how could Fang Niang not know the dirty thoughts in the heart of this married man? She tightly grasped the phone, embarrassed and angry. For some reason, the words that Ruan Ying said echoed in her mind. Then, she called up the dialog box on her phone and agreed to the friend request. Your underwear is indeed with me, but I had a request last night. In the meeting room, the man in the meeting lowered his eyes and saw this message, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. The assistants and others on the side couldn't help but sweat. It's over. Is the president not satisfied with the plan this time? The man picked up his phone and rubbed it, recalling the beauty of last night. I thought it was a misunderstanding, but I didn't expect this woman to play a big game. Want to sue me? Do you need a lawyer's phone number? I can provide it for you. Fang Ni was shocked. She didn't expect the other party to reply so promptly and decisively. Thinking that she was also at fault, Fang Ni bit her lip and replied, I'm not going to sue you, I need some money now. The man licked his back teeth and laughed angrily. How much money can compare to him? The man asked, how much? 10,000. Fang Ni mustered up her courage and typed in the number. She didn't want to have anything to do with the man anymore, but she was in urgent need of money now. She wondered if he would lend her money because of their friendship last night. Fang Ni tried hard to convince herself to overcome the embarrassment and shame in her heart. Since her father went bankrupt, she had gone from a little princess with no worries about food and clothing to a poor person who had to work hard for money every day. Now, even 10,000 yuan required such painstaking efforts and despicable means to get it. She felt both pain and self-blame. The man on the other end of the phone raised his eyebrows, and then Fang Ni sent another message. Don't worry, as long as you are willing to lend me 10,000 yuan, give me an address, and I will immediately express your underwear to you. 10,000 yuan? So she didn't ignore the last 10,000, nor did she miss a few zeros, but really only wanted 10,000 yuan. The joking meaning on the man's face instantly subsided. I don't play with such cheap women. Fang Ni bit her lip, her face was burning with embarrassment, and then her mobile phone received a transfer. Transfer 100,000, please receive the money. 100,000, count as your service fee. In addition, I want you to personally deliver the underwear. Fang Ni's eyes were red with anger. Service fee. He really thinks of herself as that kind of woman. But, what is the difference between her and that kind of woman now? Fang Ni couldn't help but choke up softly. On their way, someone saw her and said, Teacher Fang, it's almost time for class. Are you okay? No, I'm fine. Fang Ni was startled, and her finger accidentally clicked the payment. When she reacted, 100,000 had already arrived. She bit her lip, covered her tears and made sure that she didn't see anything abnormal, so she immediately transferred 10,000 yuan to their hospital and asked the other party to send the address. Looking at the address sent from above, Fang Ni's eyes were red again. He actually arranged to meet at a hotel. Fang Ni took a deep breath to comfort herself. He was just a man, there was nothing to be afraid of, they had done it before anyway. After some ostrich-like psychological preparation, she walked into the office and went to the classroom with the lesson plan. It was not until the class was over that Fang Ni hurried back to the dormitory. She wanted to send the things over as soon as possible to resolve this bad fate. However, after returning to the dormitory, Fang Ni looked at the disappeared underwear and was stunned. Chapter 3, Like to Collect. It's yours now. How could this happen? She clearly remembered throwing her underwear into the bag. Where did the bag go? Realizing something, Fang Nao quickly called Ruan Ying. Did you move my bag? Isn't it just a worthless bag? It only has a pair of men's underwear in it, what's so precious about that? So it was her? Fang Nao fumed. Where is it? Where did you put it? It's gone. Who told you to throw it away? Fang Nao couldn't help raising her voice. Ruan Ying, annoyed, said, so what if I threw it away? This dorm isn't yours alone. Fang Nao didn't have the energy to argue with her, and asked, where did you throw it? I don't know. Staring at the hung-up phone, Fang Nao clenched her teeth in frustration. She searched through the trash can for a while, then went to the one in the hallway, but found nothing. Exhausted, she leaned against the wall for a moment, then returned to the dorm and wrote an IOU for 10,000 yuan, took a picture, and sent it, along with a 90,000 yuan transfer. Sorry, your underwear is lost. This is the IOU I wrote. When I have the money, I'll pay you back the 10,000 yuan immediately. At the hotel, the man, who had just finished a day of meetings, saw the message and laughed. Was he the kind of person who needed 10,000 yuan? The message came back rejected. Fang Nao looked at the information. Like to collect. It's yours now. Fang Nao gritted her teeth. Who likes it? She took a deep breath, forced herself not to block him, and braced herself to go to the hospital. At the hospital, Kong Ling was playing with her freshly done nails, scolding, you care about auntie more than Fang Nao. If I didn't know better, I'd think you're auntie's son instead. Alright, Lingling. You know the medical devices my company is developing are for diseases like auntie's. Her data is very helpful for our research. The man beside Kong Ling spoke softly, didn't you like an LV bag a few days ago? I've already had someone order it. Consider it your birthday gift. Darling, you're the best. Kong Ling's face stiffened for a moment, then she happily hugged his arm and kissed his cheek. While they were talking, Fang Nao walked in from the hallway. Kong Ling saw her first and immediately ran to meet her. Nao, are you okay? Did you cry? Is it about auntie's medical fees? I can tell Chen Rong. It's fine. Fang Nao smiled reassuringly and said, don't tell Chen Rong about this. I already owe him enough. Besides, you two are a couple, don't always bother him with my matters. It could affect your relationship. Kong Ling playfully rolled her eyes, is my boyfriend more important than you? Anyway, if we can solve the medical fee issue, that would be the best. She smiled as she put her arm around Fang Nao. Chen Rong's already here. He's in Auntie's hospital room. Okay. Fang Nao nodded, and the two of them entered the room. Yang Chenrong looked at the calm and graceful Fang Nao and nodded toward her. Today, I came to the hospital to check on Auntie's condition and also to ask for a favor. What kind of favor would Nao need help with? Kong Ling looked warily at Fang Nao and smiled. Chen Rong, Nao is a teacher. Since she graduated, she has been teaching at school. The only thing she can do is tutor students. You don't want her to help tutor your clients' kids, right? Fang Nao's face showed a slight awkwardness. Chen Rong smiled, if they are willing, it would be great. Nao is a top lecturer at Mingder Middle School, someone ordinary people can't afford to hire. You shouldn't say that. Mingder Middle School strictly prohibits teachers from giving private lessons outside of school. If not for this rule, she wouldn't have had to pretend to be a college student offering tutoring, thus losing her integrity. I want to make you break the rules. What I want you to help with is related to Auntie's condition. Fang Nao looked up and asked worriedly, what happened to my mom? My company has recently developed a medical device that could really help your mom's condition. I've been trying to get the hospital to use it. But right now, there are other leading companies competing for the hospital's attention. If you, as a family member, could speak to the hospital leaders, it might really help. Really? If the medical device could help her mom, she naturally wanted it to be used as soon as possible. Without hesitation, she nodded and said, how can I help? I found out that tonight, the hospital's senior management is hosting an academic banquet at a hotel. Many influential figures in the medical field will be there. I also heard a special guest will attend. This person has direct decision-making power over medical equipment and invests heavily in medical research every year. I suspect this person is passionate about charity. If you come with me, you might be able to help me make a connection. Okay, I'll go. I'll go too. Kong Ling quickly spoke up. You don't need to go. The banquet only allows one companion. What does that mean? Such an important event, and he's not bringing his real girlfriend, but someone else. Kong Ling clenched her fists, feeling furious, though she showed a regretful expression. That's really too bad, I was hoping to see the world too. But it's best if Nao can help you. You'd better take good care of my best friend. If anyone bullies her, I won't let you off their hook. Of course. Yang Chenrong smiled. After seeing the two of them off, Kong Ling was seething with anger. She looked at the middle-aged woman lying unconscious on the hospital bed and cursed, what a useless thing. If you can't survive, just die. Why drag me down? If it weren't for you, Fang Nao wouldn't keep pestering my man. You're both just as low as each other. Just then, a phone call came in, and Kong Ling immediately switched to a coy tone. Mr. Zhao, what a surprise to hear from you. It's her fault for standing you up. I've already criticized her severely. Don't worry, I'll make sure she comes to apologize to you. A flicker of malice passed through her eyes. Meanwhile, before entering the hotel, Yang Chenrong handed Fang Nao a bag. Inside is a gown. It's more appropriate to wear one for the banquet. Please cooperate. You don't need to thank me, I should be the one thanking you. Fang Nao hurriedly waved her hand. She was thrilled to have this chance to help her mother gain access to the medical device, and her gratitude toward Yang Chenrong grew. She took the gown bag and went to the hotel's restroom. After changing, she was stunned. The gown was beautiful, accentuating her figure perfectly, as if it had been tailored just for her. It was clear that Yang Chenrong had put in a lot of effort for this event. Chapter 4: Want to play pool. Fang Li thought that Kong Ling told Yang Chenrong her size so that she could get such a fitting dress. She looked left and right in the mirror. Her chest was covered by a large piece of lace, so she couldn't see the marks inside. However, she could still clearly see some spots on her thin and slender neck. She carefully covered it up with concealer until her original appearance could no longer be seen, and then she walked out of the bathroom. Outside the bathroom, Yang Chenrong was waiting like a gentleman. When he saw Fang Meng coming out of the bathroom, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. The goose-yellow lace dress made her look even more gorgeous, just like the flowers falling from the tree when they first met. You are beautiful. Fang Li looked at his obsessed expression and pulled the corner of her mouth uncomfortably. Thank you. Let's go. Seeing Yang Chenrong stretching out his arm, Fang Li took the initiative to step forward and hold it. The door of the banquet hall opened, Yang Chenrong handed over the invitation and walked in slowly with her. Boss Yang, long time no see. Is this your girlfriend? She is so beautiful. Thanks. Yang Chenrong smiled faintly and nodded. Fang Shi was surprised and whispered, why are you admitting this so easily? It's too troublesome to explain them one by one. Ling Ling will understand. Besides, the purpose of our visit today is to discuss cooperation with the hospital. I will introduce you to several authoritative doctors later. They are all very knowledgeable in the field related to your aunt's condition. All right. Fang Meng had no choice but to bite the bullet and follow Yang Chenrong to socialize. At this time, a man came over and said, there is a private room in the banquet, and the person you are looking for is inside. I can only make an introduction for you, as for the result, it depends on your own ability. Thank you very much. Yang Chenrong nodded and took Fang Li to the box. The door of the box was opened, and Fang Li was stunned as soon as she walked in. It was obviously a banquet for a group of medical professionals, but a pool table was separated by a screen in the box. Under the dim light, one could vaguely see a person standing on the other side of the pool table. It was just that the smoke made it difficult to see the person's appearance. But the person was tall and imposing, which made Yang Chenrong, who had just entered, feel more pressured. "Boss Kai, this is Yang Chenrong, the manager of Yang Corporation, and his girlfriend." Kai Xiao's eyes inadvertently swept across the two people's arms. Yang Chenrong was already sweating coldly. "Mr. Kai. This person, could it be Kai Xiao, the president of Kai Group? He is a man who is famous for being ruthless, cruel and decisive in killing people." Yang Chenrong subconsciously looked up at him, but when he met his cold, hawk-like eyes, he broke out in a cold sweat. He hurriedly bowed his head and said respectfully, "Mr. Kai, it's an honor to meet you. You really should be honored." Kai Xiao raised the corner of his mouth and glanced at him coldly. Yang Chenrong's back was stiff and he felt inexplicably cold. He thought he was going to meet a kind and amiable old man, but he turned out to be a tough nut to crack. He lowered his head and smiled awkwardly. "Boss Kai, I'm here to seek cooperation on behalf of our company's latest medical device. Before this, my team and I had submitted a letter of intent for cooperation, but we have not received a response from your company. I am very sincere in the field of medical devices. My girlfriend's mother is currently receiving treatment at your company's hospital. If your company can introduce my medical devices. Can you play billiards?" A careless voice sounded, and the other party seemed not to have listened to him at all. Yang Chenrong was stunned for a moment, then nodded quickly. "I know a little bit. Try." Kai Xiao raised the pool cue and pointed at Fang Meng. Fang Li hurriedly waved her hands and said, "I'm sorry, I don't know how to do it." A woman's gentle and clear voice sounded, which was completely different from the way she whimpered and begged for mercy in bed. Kai Xiao's mouth curled up with a hint of evil amusement. It seems that there is no sincerity. If she doesn't know how to do it, she can learn. I believe she is willing to try. Yang Chenrong interrupted Fang Meng and gave her a pleading look. The other party is Kai Xiao, whom they can't afford to offend. Fang Meng opened her mouth and then closed it bitterly. Then, Yang Chenrong was taken outside the screen to discuss the details of the cooperation project. Obviously, such a small matter did not need to trouble the distinguished President Kai Xiao. Fang Li stood stiffly beside the pool table. When she saw the other party coming over, she felt as if she was being stared at by a poisonous snake and felt uncomfortable all over. "Kai, Mr. Kai. Does your boyfriend know how passionate you were yesterday?" A deep voice sounded from behind her, and Fang Meng's eyes suddenly widened. This sound. Her legs went weak and she almost collapsed to the ground. The sound that echoed in her ears like a spell that night, she would never forget it even if she died. Last night, the lights in the hotel room were dim, and she could only feel the other person's strong body and deep, hoarse voice, but wasn't that man Boss Zhao? How could it be him? Being hugged by Kai Xiao from behind, Fang Yang shuddered and whispered, "You, what do you want? First you blackmailed me, then you threatened me with the contract. I should be the one asking you what you want. It's not like that, you misunderstood." Fang Li was squeezed between the pool table and him and was forced to bend down and press against the pool table to match his posture. Her pretty face turned red and she moved her body with some difficulty. "Don't move." Kai Xiao swallowed, and a faint light flashed in his eyes. Fang Meng was so frightened that she dared not move. She said with a stiff head, "I didn't know you were Kai Xiao. Everything before was a misunderstanding. I apologize to you. I swear, I will pay you back as soon as possible." "Yeah." The deep voice sounded close to my ear, full of evil humor. Fang Yan bit her lip and tried to struggle, but she was weak and trapped in the arms of a strong and powerful man. All her struggles were just excuses to play both sides. Fang Yan had never felt so nervous and embarrassed. She couldn't help crying and begging, "Stop, please, don't." At this moment, she and Yang Chenrong and others were separated by only a screen, and she could even hear the conversation outside. She didn't dare to imagine what the consequences would be if something happened between her and Kai Xiao here. By then, I'm afraid everyone will think that she is a shameless woman and that she deliberately seduced Kai Xiao. But obviously she is the victim. Fang Li's eyes welled up with redness and she murmured in a low voice, but it was of no use. "Boss Kai, it's all my fault. Please, let me go, okay? After an unknown amount of time, tears welled up in Fang Ni's eyes, and her weakness revealed a hint of powerlessness and pity. Kai Xiao's eyes darkened as he looked at her like that, and an indescribable heat rose in his heart. Stay with me tonight. He couldn't help but lower his head and bite Fang Meng's ear. Chapter 5. I don't have this hobby. No, I can't. Fang Shi choked up quietly, and because of the other party's actions, she collapsed powerlessly on the pool table, her legs unable to support her and falling like mud. Then here. Fang Xiu took a deep breath. What kind of nonsense was he talking about? Can't. A scream was heard. Yang Qinrong, who was outside the screen, heard the noise and asked in confusion, Niani, are you okay? No, it's okay. Mr. Kai is teaching me how to play billiards. Not daring to arouse suspicion from outsiders, Fang Ni tried hard to keep her voice calm. Kai Xiao sneered, and for some unknown reason, he suddenly lowered his head and bit her sensitive earlobe. Tilde. Is this guy crazy? There are so many people outside, how can he? The more Fang Li thought about it, the more frightened she became. She was horrified to find that this man might really be able to do anything. There was a struggle in her eyes, and after a long while, she said softly, I promise you. The restraints were loosened and Fang Li breathed a sigh of relief. The next second, she saw Kai Xiao casually stuffing something into his trouser pocket. Fang Li took a deep breath and whispered, give it back to me. You take one and I take one. That's fair, isn't it? Fang Shi bit her lower lip and couldn't help yelling, then I don't want it anymore. She walked out as if escaping, and outside the screen, a group of people looked at her subconsciously. Mr. Kai thought I was too stupid and couldn't teach me, so he let me out. Fang Ni gave a dry explanation. Then, Kai Xiao walked out from behind the screen, straightened his clothes with a calm expression, and said, it's boring, let's go. Boss Kai. Yang Qinrong's face turned pale and he stood up stiffly. However, the people around him followed Kai Xiao in unison, leaving without giving him any more chance to react. Yang Qinrong pounded the table in frustration. I was almost there so I could finish talking about the advantages of medical devices. Fang Shi opened her mouth, and sensing his displeasure, she whispered, I'm sorry. I don't mean to blame you. I just think that if you can help me buy more time, I might be able to get this cooperation. Isn't that still blaming her? If he knew what she had experienced in there, would he still think like this? Fang Ni felt so aggrieved that she was about to cry. Seeing this, Yang Qinrong softened his tone and said, it's not like there's no way back. Haven't they already accepted my cooperation project proposal? Come on, I'll take you back. Yang Qinrong stood up and walked forward to put his arm around Fang Meng's shoulders. She dodged it reflexively and whispered, I can walk by myself. She walked forward slowly, ignoring the discomfort beneath her body, and followed Yang Qinrong obediently. The feeling of being in a vacuum was very uncomfortable. Fang Mia felt even more guilty when she thought that not only had she failed to help Yang Qinrong, but she had also caused his work to be in vain. She made up an excuse to leave and went back to their hotel. Just now, Kai Xiao sent her a WeChat message. There is a room number on it. She wanted to ask Kai Xiao if there was any possibility of cooperation. Just as Fang Li arrived at the door of the room, before she was mentally prepared, the door was opened from the inside as if she had a premonition. Kai Xiao looked at her jokingly, why didn't you stand her up this time? Fang Li bit her lip. Of course she wanted to stand him up, but she knew that Kai Xiao was not a good person. She had just heard Yang Qinrong mention that Kai Xiao was the president of Kai Corporation. When he first came to power, it was said that many senior executives of Kai Corporation did not obey him. But in just 3 years, he not only managed Kai's business to the point where he had the final say, but also tripled Kai's market value. Such a person can no longer be described as just a genius. What's even more terrifying is that his methods were ruthless, and anyone who blocked him or defied him paid a heavy price. No one can afford to offend such a person. I know that what happened before was my fault, and I can apologize to you. But this matter has nothing to do with Yang Qinrong. He really came here with sincerity to seek cooperation. Mentioning another man in front of me. Kai Xiao reached out and grabbed Fang Ni's chin, forcing her to look up at him. Those tearful eyes seemed to be able to speak, silently accusing him of his cruelty. Kai Rong's throat moved slightly, and he couldn't hold back any longer and pulled her into his arms. The moment the door was closed, he kissed her fiercely. I have to admit that the feeling of tasting the sweetness is really wonderful. He clasped her hands with one hand, lifted them up high and pressed them against the wall, forcing her to straighten her chest, revealing her graceful figure. Feeling the softness on his chest, Chiron could no longer hold back and started to tear it apart. Be good, open your legs. No tilde no, please. Don't, no. Tiny moans flowed out from between her lips and teeth, and a strange yet familiar heat swept over her. Fang and trembled all over, and in her confusion, she had forgotten the purpose of her visit. An unknown amount of time had passed before Fang Miao nestled in Kai Xiao's arms in shame. She was so limp that she had no strength left and let Kai Xiao do whatever he wanted. She even had the thought of throwing the jar into the ground. Afterwards, WeChat prompted that the other party had sent a transfer of 100,000 yuan. Fang Shi's pupils shrank slightly, and she said angrily, I'm not that kind of woman. You can be. Kai Xiao took her phone without hesitation and confirmed the payment, then said, I've allowed you to have a boyfriend, so what's wrong with you having another sponsor? Fang Li was shocked. Is this guy crazy? Kai Xiao said to himself, but I really don't have the hobby of sharing my belongings with others. So let's break up. You won't lose any money. Let me go. Fang Li's face turned red, and her angry and embarrassed look made Chiron unable to let go of her. Give you some time to think about it. Impossible. Fang Li got up angrily, trying to suppress her discomfort. She shouldn't have come. Who wants your filthy money? Take it back. Fang Li returned the money to him and quickly put on her clothes under Kai Xiao's teasing gaze. Just as she was about to leave, a pair of panties was thrown towards her. Kai Xiao was lying on the bed, and said leisurely, It's a friendly gift, you're welcome. Fang Li threw the panties on her face to the ground in shame and anger, and her face turned red. I don't have that hobby. Fang Meng left the hotel in a rage and took a taxi back to the dormitory. The discomfort she felt made her want to rush to the bathroom and wash away the traces left behind over and over again. Ruan Ying in the dormitory saw this and her eyes flickered. She took a picture of Fang Meng in a mess and said, some people even said that she was trying to hook up with other men. She came back so late every day and had such intense sex. I don't know how she can be a teacher. Her words were full of contempt. The photo just now was a handle. If she posted it on the school forum, Fang Meng would have no chance of staying in school. Fang Meng looked at Ruan Ying coldly and said, delete the photos. Ruan Ying was not afraid at all, and raised her phone, you told me to delete it, so I deleted it. Why? Unless. Ruan Ying paused, and a triumphant smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. You will not participate in the selection of outstanding teachers in this school. Chapter 6 Everyone who sees you says you are a college student. Fang Ni is beautiful and a good teacher, and is very popular among the students. If she participated in the selection of outstanding teachers, I'm afraid there would be no chance for Ruan Ying. Fang Shi agreed without much hesitation. She would not get a penny for being selected as an excellent teacher, and she would have more and more things to do in school in the future, which was of no benefit to her. She was happy to be relaxed. Ruan Ying was stunned for a moment, as if afraid that she would change her mind, so she deleted the photos in front of her, and then returned to her room contentedly. Fang Shi was relieved and washed every inch of her body carefully until her skin turned slightly red. She dragged her tired body back to the room, and the image of Kai Xiao could not help but appear in her mind. This man is too dangerous. Stay away from him from now on. Just when she was about to fall asleep, she was awakened by the ringing of the phone. The name Kong Ling flashed on the screen, and she couldn't help feeling guilty. Kong Ling and her boyfriend Yang Chenron have been trying their best to help her, but tonight the cooperation almost broke down because of her. It is unknown whether the medical device that can help mothers in hospital can be launched in the future. Lingling. Fang Ni picked up the phone and called out. Nyan Nyan, do you still remember the boss Zhao I introduced to you before? That boss Zhao called me and was very dissatisfied with your behavior of standing him up that day. Nyan Nyan, I want to ask you, do you still want to work part-time? If boss Zhao reveals that you stood me up, it will be even more difficult for you to tutor other students in the future. And the price boss Zhao is offering is very high, do you really not want it? There was a hint of resentment in Kong Ling's tone. Lingling, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Fang Ni knew she was in the wrong, but she couldn't explain herself clearly, and she felt filled with guilt. It was her fault. The person she was looking for that day was clearly Boss Zhao, but somehow, she was dragged in by that man. Kong Ling sighed on the other end of the phone. It's no use apologizing to me, Nian Nian. I've already told Boss Zhao that you'll go and apologize to him. Don't stand me up again this time, okay? Otherwise, it will be hard for me to help you in the future. I understand. I'll go. Fang Li agreed immediately. No matter whether she wanted to go for tutoring or not, it was wrong for her to stand up the class. If Boss Zhao didn't mind, she would feel more at ease. Of course, if she could tutor Boss Zhao's children, she could also earn more money. The two chatted for a few more words and then hung up the phone. Fang Meng didn't know that Kong Ling's expression changed after she hung up the phone. She knew Boss Zhao's character very well. As long as Fang and I went to the hotel, there was no way she would come out safely. At that time, Yang Qinrong will know what kind of person Fang Meng, whom he has been thinking about all the time, is behind the scenes. The next morning, Fang and I simply washed up, picked up a few tutoring books, and rushed to the place agreed upon by Kong Ling. From a distance, Kong Ling saw Fang and I dressed in a professional suit and could not help but frown. Nian Nian, you are going to work part-time, why are you dressed so formally? Come on, let's change into new clothes before going. Kong Ling dragged Fang Niani into a clothing store next door. Fang Shi was a little puzzled. I am just a tutor. If I don't dress more formally, Boss Zhao won't believe in my professionalism, right? Kong Ling pouted secretly. Boss Zhao just liked to have fun, and he liked women who dressed pure and lovely. How could he be interested in this professional attire? But don't forget, we are using the excuse of tutoring college students. You have to make people think that you are really a college student, right? Kong Ling spoke casually, her eye sliding over a piece of clothing. When she selected one, Fang Li's beauty could not be overwhelmed. Even the waiter next to her was stunned and looked at her in amazement. Lingling, is this really okay? Of course you can. If you go out like this, everyone will say you are a college student. Kong Ling was both jealous and annoyed. She urged Fang and I to pay the bill and dragged her to their hotel. Lingling, why are we going to their hotel again this time? Do I have to come to their hotel for tutoring in the future? Fang and I felt uncomfortable all over, always feeling that something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Kong Ling spread her hands helplessly. Boss Zhao is very busy at work on weekdays. He can only spare a few minutes to meet you when he is resting in the hotel. I will give you the room number later. I have other things to do, so I won't go in with you. Fang Li nodded and agreed. Arriving at the hotel entrance, Fang Xiu took a deep breath, tightly grasped the book in her hand, and walked in. But she didn't know that Kong Ling followed her quietly and saw her enter the room with her own eyes before she turned around and left with satisfaction. As soon as she entered the room, Fang Shi looked around and didn't see anyone. She frowned, thinking that she had taken the wrong path again, and quickly turned around to leave. Suddenly, I heard the door of the bathroom next to me open, and a middle-aged man's voice came out. Miss Fang, you are the college student counselor introduced by Lingling, right? Yes, you are Boss Zhao, right? Hello, I was wrong to stand you up before, and I came here today to apologize. I hope Boss Zhao will forgive me. Fang Xiu turned sideways, lowered her head slightly, and spoke to the middle-aged man in front of her. Boss Zhao narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at Fang Meng, who was dressed in pure clothes, and couldn't suppress the smile on his face. Kong Ling was right, Fang Meng was indeed a rare beauty. Boss Zhao reached out and patted Fang Meng's shoulder gently, but his eyes were looking at her body unscrupulously, with a sanctimonious look. Don't worry, Miss Fang. I won't take that matter to heart. After all, you also rely on tutoring as a part-time job. If I expose that you are unreliable, I'm afraid it will be even more difficult for you to find a part-time job in the future. Hearing this, Fang Shi couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. She quietly stepped back and tried to separate the hand on her shoulder. Unexpectedly, the hand seemed to have taken root on her shoulder, not moving at all, and even pinched it deliberately. Fang Meng was startled, and simply pushed Boss Zhao's hand away, grabbed the book and walked to the sofa, saying, Boss Zhao, I wonder if your son is willing to tutor you. What subject does he want to be tutored in? She wanted to turn around and leave just now, but when she thought that the price of tutoring was enough to allow her mother to receive nutrient solution for a few more days, she could only suppress her uneasiness and pretend to be calm when talking to Boss Zhao. Boss Zhao looked at Fang Meng's actions without any anger on his face. He walked over to the sofa and sat down next to Fang Meng, taking the book from her hand. Ms. Fang, don't worry about the tutoring. I think you are really beautiful. If you are willing, I will give you a monthly salary in the future, which is higher than the price you pay for tutoring others. After saying that, Boss Zhao couldn't wait to hold Fang Meng's hands, and his ugly face kept moving upwards. Fang Ni was frightened by this action. She struggled desperately, trying to push Boss Zhao away, shouting, "Boss Zhao, I'm just here to provide guidance. I won't do anything else. You should find someone else. I'm leaving now." She was so flustered that she stuttered. This scene reminded her of how Kai Xiao treated her in the same way in the hotel before. Fang Li's face turned extremely pale in an instant. Chapter 7, Not Knowing Good People. You've entered my room, and you still want to leave? You'd better stay and accompany me. Boss Zhao tore off the hypocrisy on his face, pounced on her, and pressed Fang Li down on the sofa with his hands and feet. This woman is truly a stunner. He must get it. Let me go. Fang Li's eyes widened in horror and she struggled excitedly. Let me go. No. Everything that happened with Kai Xiao was still vivid in her mind, but there had never been a moment that made her feel more disgusted and terrified than this moment. Fang Meng's tears flowed unconsciously, which made Boss Zhao even more excited. He opened his garlicky mouth and pressed his head towards Fang Meng's alluring red lips. Bang! A shrill sound was heard, and the hotel room door was kicked open from outside with a bang. The sound was so loud that it startled Boss Zhao, who was sitting on the sofa. He didn't care about Fang Meng. He stood up and straightened his messy clothes, and said coldly, "Is this how you serve your guests? Believe it or not, I will complain to your hotel manager immediately. You will never be able to open your hotel in the city again." He subconsciously thought that his wife at home had discovered that he was looking for a woman outside. After getting a chance to catch her breath, Fang Ni protected her chest and rushed out of the room. But she never expected that the waiter who kicked the door open moved away, revealing Kai Xiao with a sullen face behind him. He stared at her intently, as if he wanted to see through her. Fang Ni was so shocked that she stopped where she was, her tears still wet, and she looked even more embarrassed. At this moment, she wished she could find a hole in the ground to crawl into. How could it be Kai Xiao? Kai Xiao frowned and looked at Fang Meng's thin clothes. His eyes became even deeper. He took off his coat and casually covered her with it. A warm and slightly cool smell came to her nose. Fang Ni sniffed. The inexplicable sense of security made her stand aside obediently and dared not say a word. Boss Zhao sensed something was wrong and was stunned when he saw Kai Xiao at the door. "Kai, Mr. Kai, why are you here?" Boss Zhao glanced back and forth between the two of them, feeling more and more uneasy. Could it be that Kai Xiao suddenly kicked open his door because Fang Meng in front of him was his person? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shiver. If he had known that Fang Li knew Kai Xiao, he would not have dared to snatch her from Kai Xiao even if he had hundreds of courage. "Kai, Mr. Kai, I didn't do anything with this woman. She is the tutor I found for my son. We met today to clarify the content of the tutoring. What you just saw was a misunderstanding." It was a misunderstanding. Boss Zhao explained hurriedly, but afraid that Kai Xiao would not believe him, he took several steps back, wishing he could stay 8 feet away from Fang Meng. Kai Xiao glanced at Boss Zhao coldly. Seeing his cowardly look, he became even more dissatisfied. "Is this the man you like? Are you willing to degenerate to this extent just for a little money?" Kai Xiao didn't even look at Boss Zhao. He couldn't understand why Fang Meng was willing to be with such a man. Could it be that this fat guy could be compared to me? Fang Meng had calmed down by now. Listening to Kai Xiao's slander, she felt a little annoyed and said, "Boss Kai, who I am with is my business. What does it have to do with you? He and Boss Zhao are just the same kind of people, both of them have bad intentions." Kai Xiao's face turned gloomy in an instant. He helped her, but she didn't even show any gratitude. If he hadn't happened to see her enter the room and heard the waiter say that the person living there was a guy who liked to play with young girls, how could he have meddled in her affairs? What a little wildcat who doesn't know how to appreciate good people. "Come with me." "I don't." Fang Meng angrily shook off his hand and ran away without looking back. To her, Boss Zhao is dangerous, but Kai Xiao is even more dangerous. Kai Xiao laughed angrily, and when he saw her walking away, his cold eyes fell on Boss Zhao. "Where did you run into her just now?" "Kai, Mr. Kai. I was wrong, please forgive me." Boss Zhao's face turned pale and he knelt limply on the ground. At the same time, Fang Li, who had escaped the disaster, was still filled with fear. After returning to the dormitory, taking a shower, and lying on the bed, she finally recovered from what happened today. She was just a little bit away from being bullied by Boss Zhao. Although she had to admit that she escaped thanks to Kai Xiao, how did he appear in the hotel so coincidentally? And he was able to accurately kick open the door of her room. Was Kai Xiao following her? Thinking of the word tracking, she felt goosebumps all over her body. She shook her head, put aside the random thoughts in her mind, picked up her cell phone and made a call. Nyan Nyan, why are you calling me at this time? Have you finished the tutoring? When Kong Ling answered the phone, she took a special look at the time. It was only half an hour. Have you ever asked what kind of person Boss Zhao is? Kong Ling's eyes flickered slightly on the other end of the phone. She glanced at Yang Chenrong beside her and said with a puzzled tone, "What's wrong, Nyo? Did something happen between you and that Boss Zhao? Are you still in the hotel? Otherwise, I'll come pick you up right now." She deliberately emphasized the word hotel, which really caused Yang Chenrong to stop. He put his arm around Kong Ling's shoulder and listened to their conversation. Seeing Yang Chenrong's move, Kong Ling felt sad. She knew that Yang Chenrong would pay special attention to anything related to Fang Meng. Only by destroying her will she be the only woman in his heart. "No, I've already replied. Boss Zhao doesn't need my help with tutoring. If there's anything like this next time, just push it to me. Boss Zhao doesn't look like a good person." Fang Li reminded her tactfully that she thought Kong Ling had also been deceived. After all, she was wholeheartedly trying to help herself, so it was better for her to remind her. "Okay, Niani, if anything happens to you, remember to tell me and I will definitely help you. As for your aunt, I will ask my boyfriend to pay more attention to her and let her use that advanced medical device as soon as possible." Seeing that Kong Ling chose to support her without even asking the reason, Fang Shi felt warm in her heart and said, "Thank you, Lingling. If it weren't for your help, I'm afraid my mother would have already. There's no need to be so polite between us. You should take a good rest in the dormitory first. I'll tell you if there's another part-time job." "Good." Fang Li pursed her lips and nodded. After the call ended, Yang Chenrong frowned and asked, "Lingling, what's the matter with the Boss Zhao you just told Fang Meng about? Is he the Boss Zhao we know? How could she be involved with Boss Zhao?" Kong Ling looked innocent. Nyan Nyan wanted to work as a tutor part-time to earn some money. She agreed when she heard that Boss Zhao was looking for someone. "You also know that it costs a lot of money for my aunt. If she didn't make money, my aunt's medicine would have been cut off long ago. You should know what kind of person Boss Zhao is. Why don't you tell her? What if Boss Zhao wants to do something to her?" There was a hint of blame in Yang Chenrong's tone. Kong Ling was almost laughing at Yang Chenrong's anger. He was her boyfriend, but he was getting angry with her for a stranger? What if Nian Nian knows what kind of person Boss Zhao is? What if she is willing? After all, my aunt is still short of a large sum of money. Who knows what she is thinking? Kong Ling couldn't help but retort. After all, she wanted to work part-time because she was short of money. Can I stop her? Chapter 8. How could you do this to me? Lingling, you are good friends, how can you say that about her? Fang Meng is naive and doesn't know what kind of person Boss Zhao is. Almost everyone in the city has heard of his reputation. He has a wife at home and he plays with other women. Fang Meng will definitely be bullied by him. As her friend, you should tell her. What's the point of telling her? She's already refused anyway. Isn't that okay? Kong Ling looked unconcerned. Yang Chenrong was worried and prepared to go to Fang Meng's dormitory to check on her situation. Kong Ling was anxious and angrily said, "Yang Chenrong, where did you put me? We are obviously boyfriend and girlfriend, how could you do this to me?" Kong Ling's tears flowed down her cheeks, her face was full of grievance, and she finally shouted out what was in her heart. "You clearly promised to accompany me today, but Fang and I called and you couldn't wait to find her. In your heart, who do you like, me or her?" With people coming and going around, Yang Chenrong felt a little embarrassed. He put his arm around Kong Ling's shoulders and took her to the other side. "Lingling, it's all my fault. I don't treat Fang Meng the way you think. She's your best friend, so I treat her better. Don't be angry, okay? By the way, didn't you fancy that bag? Let's go buy it now. Yang Chenrong knew he was in the wrong, so he patiently coaxed Kong Ling. Kong Ling stopped when she saw that she was ahead. She reached out her hand to wipe the tears from her face and forced a smile. In that case, I forgive you. In fact, I just want you to care about me more. Yes, I will. What else do you want to eat later? I'll take you there. Only after getting Yang Chenrong's assurance did Kong Ling smile. But in her heart she couldn't help blaming Boss Zhao for being a useless waste. She had tried to introduce him to someone several times, but he turned out to be so useless. While Fang Ni was daydreaming in the dormitory, she heard a message on her cell phone. She opened it and instantly woke up. Come to the hotel and find me. I have something to talk to you about. The email was followed by the hotel room number, and the sender was Kai Xiao. Fang, she casually typed, I have nothing to discuss with you. Really? If you didn't come, don't blame me for telling your boyfriend what happened today. I don't think he knows about it, right? Kai Xiao said lightly. Boyfriend? Fang Li frowned. Is it Yang Chenrong? Then tell him. Anyway, Boss Zhao and I didn't do anything. He will believe me. Fang Meng didn't care. She and Yang Chenrong were just friends. Even if he really misunderstood, it didn't matter. Hearing her answer, Kai Xiao's face looked a little ugly. He just felt that Fang Yang loved her boyfriend very much and had extreme trust in him. This trust made him even more irritated and he wanted to destroy it. Then if I say that I want to talk to you about the medical device cooperation that your boyfriend mentioned, are you sure you don't want to come? Kai Xiao said as he unbuttoned his collar, letting some cool air to calm him down. If Fang Meng hadn't been disobedient, he wouldn't have wanted to threaten her with other things. Fang, she paused. She had heard from Yang Chenrong about the cooperation on medical devices. Once the medical devices were on the market, many patients like her mother would be able to use them. For patients' families like them, it was like timely help. Now that there is an opportunity for cooperation, how could she be willing to give it up? What's more, it was because of her that Yang Chenrong was unable to explain the content of the cooperation clearly last time, and she has always felt guilty. I can come over, but you have to promise not to do anything to me. Seeing this, Kai Xiao laughed. Good. Fang, she bit her lip, thinking that he was the president of a large company after all, and he always kept his word. So she simply packed up and left the dormitory. As soon as she walked into the hotel room, before she could see the environment inside clearly, the door was closed behind her. Fang Meng was startled and turned her head suddenly. She saw Kai Xiao with his arms folded, looking at her with a half smile. Kai, Mr. Kai, why are you behind the door? When she said this, she subconsciously stepped back, putting some distance between herself and Kai Xiao. Noticing Fang Meng's actions, Kai Xiao felt a little unhappy. Why? Didn't you rush to see me? Fang Li bit her lip, a hint of embarrassment flashing across her eyes. But thinking of his purpose, he had to quickly walk to the sofa behind him and sit down, keeping a distance from Kai Xiao to ease the uneasiness in his heart. Boss Kai, didn't you say before that you wanted to discuss medical device cooperation with me? She gritted her teeth and looked directly into Kai Xiao's eyes, for she was afraid that she would flee under his gaze. Do you like your boyfriend so much? Kai Xiao was not satisfied with her businesslike words and casually slumped on the sofa. Fang Li felt a little uncomfortable with his gaze, and she didn't bother to explain too much, so she said, Mr. Kai, if you can agree to cooperate on medical equipment, it will be the best thing for the patient's family, and they will be grateful to you. Moreover, this medical device has been developed for a long time, and there won't be any problems. Mr. Kai, please consider it. She only vaguely remembered that Yang Chenrong had told her about the specific details of this medical device. He was very confident in the effectiveness of the device, so she believed that he would not lie to her. Be grateful to me. If you let me invest so much money just because of this gratitude, wouldn't I be at a huge loss? After all, there are thousands of projects, so it doesn't matter which one I choose. Kai Xiao looked indifferent, as if he had no interest in this cooperation at all. After all, compared to cooperation, he is more interested in Fang Li now. Fang, she was anxious. Boss Kai, you can't say that. The development of medical technology can relieve patients from pain, which is also a good thing for you. At least it can make your reputation more and more famous in the city. Once the device is on the market, it will definitely be popular, and maybe it can help your company to a higher level. As she spoke, she didn't realize that she was getting closer and closer to Kai Xiao. Do you trust this medical device so much? Kai Xiao was not stupid. He could tell at a glance that Fang Li was a layman in medical matters. Fang Shi nodded subconsciously. She only hoped that after the device was launched on the market, it could be used immediately by her mother to relieve her pain. It's not impossible for me to agree. I've said before that I don't like sharing a woman with other men. When are you going to break up with your boyfriend? As Kai Xiao spoke, he put one hand around Fang Meng's shoulders and the other around her waist, slowly sliding his hand under her skirt. Even Kai Xiao couldn't understand why the blood in his body began to boil as soon as he touched Fang Meng, and he wished he could ravage her in his body. Fang Li's face was full of panic. She stretched out her hand and pushed Kai Xiao in front of her, saying, "Boss Kai, don't be like this. Aren't we going to talk about cooperation?" She instantly recalled the time when Kai Xiao bullied her in the hotel. Her face turned red and she backed away as far as possible. Chapter 9: Beauty by Your Side. But she didn't know that she was already sitting at the edge of the sofa, so where would there be room if she moved back? She leaned back suddenly. In panic, Fang Li couldn't help but grab the things in front of her. With a plop, she and Kai Xiao lay smoothly on the sofa cushion, the two of them in an up and down position, sticking closer to each other. I didn't mean it. Fang Li was not used to such intimacy and tried to push Kai Xiao away. But Kai Xiao didn't want to move at all. With a faint smile on his face, he teased, "I didn't expect you to like this kind of tune." I didn't. Mr. Kai, you let me up first." As she spoke, she had already keenly sensed something. Fang Li's face flushed instantly, and she said something in a panic, "Boss Kai, we can't do this. It will be bad if someone sees us." She was both panicked and at a loss. She had never thought that something like this would happen to her one day. Kai Xiao caught a glimpse of her flushed face and the smile on his face deepened. He leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Be good, no one will see you in this room, unless you have this hobby." I didn't. Fang Li was so paralyzed by his actions that she had no intention of thinking about Kai Xiao's questions at all. Kai Xiao suddenly kissed Fang Meng's mouth, blocking all her moans. The temperature in the room rose rapidly. Fang Meng didn't know when her clothes disappeared. Her whole body was limp and she fell into a deep sleep until dawn. After an unknown amount of time, Fang Meng woke up in a daze. She felt as if her body had been crushed, and the slightest movement made her frown in pain. She looked to her side and saw Kai Xiao looking at her with a smile on his face. She instantly remembered the crazy things that happened last night. How could you do this to me?" She covered her chest with the quilt and questioned Kai Xiao angrily. Once again, she fell into his hands. Moreover, she shamefully discovered that she no longer felt the disgust she had the first time. "This is horrible. With a beautiful woman by my side and such cooperative partner, it's not my fault." Kai Xiao was in a good mood. Hearing this, Fang Li was furious. How could she be cooperating? She was clearly so sore all over that she had no strength to push Kai Xiao away, so she could only let him do whatever he wanted. "You clearly said yesterday that you wouldn't do anything to me, but you didn't keep your word." Fang Ni's eyes were filled with tears. She felt so wronged that she wanted to cry. She actually naively believed what he said. Kai Xiao touched his nose. He was indeed a man of his word, but the matter of Fang Meng was an exception. Kai Xiao did not continue the topic, and said, "Regarding the medical device you mentioned yesterday, I can consider it. If the experiment shows that the effect is really that good, I can invest money." As expected, Fang Li was immediately diverted from the topic and looked at Kai Xiao with surprise. "Are you serious? Do you agree to cooperate?" Kai Xiao hummed lightly, and saw Fang Man's eyes filled with tears of excitement. "For such a long time, my mother's condition has not improved. Now there is finally medical equipment that can relieve the pain. She is really happy. Thank you, Mr. Kai." Fang Meng hurriedly got up, ignoring the pain in her body, rolled out of bed, picked up the clothes scattered on the floor, and put them on in no time. "Mr. Kai, I will tell my friend about the cooperation. Anyway, thank you for helping so many patients. I have something else to do and I'll leave first." Kai Xiao's face turned cold, and he looked at Fang Meng, who was leaving excitedly, with a determined sneer on the corner of his mouth. Is a person who works in the medical device industry qualified to compete with him for people? On the other hand, Fang Li was not in a hurry to notify Yang Chenrong, but went to the pharmacy first. In addition to buying birth control pills, she also bought some special ointment. Just as she was on her way back to the dormitory, Yang Chenrong called her first. Fang Meng, I have good news for you. President Kai has agreed to cooperate with our hospital. I will arrange a device for your mother as soon as possible so that she can receive treatment as soon as possible. That's great, thank you. Hearing this again, Fang Mi breathed a sigh of relief, as this meant that Kai Xiao did not lie to her. But I want to ask you something. Why did Mr. Kai say that the cooperation was possible thanks to your help? Have you met Mr. Kai in private? Fang Shi's heart tightened, and she couldn't help but recall the absurdity in the hotel. She hurriedly said, I just briefly talked about the benefits of medical devices. Mr. Kai must think your products are good, so he agreed to invest. How dare she say the specific process of her discussion with Kai Xiao about cooperation? Yang Chenrong always felt that something was wrong, but when he heard Fang Meng's tone, it didn't sound like anything was wrong, so he quickly believed what she said. But I should still thank you. It's just that there's nothing I can do to help you. I can only ensure that the cost of your mother using this medical device in the hospital can be reduced as much as possible. Really? That's great. Fang Meng was worried about her mother's medical expenses, so Yang Chenrong was a great help to her. The next morning, Fang Ni felt much better, even the mark on her neck disappeared, and she came to school in a happy mood. She believed that she and Kai Xiao would never have the chance to meet again, and that her life would continue to be as peaceful as before. Little did he know that at this moment Kai Xiao was sitting in the principal's office, with his nephew Kai Hao standing next to him. Mr. Kai, I have no problem with the conditions you just mentioned. But I heard that classmate Kai Hao doesn't seem to be very happy in other schools. If this were to happen in our school, would he be willing? The principal was respectful but also very nervous, fearing that he might displease the gentleman. Don't worry, principal. As long as there is no problem with your school, everything will be fine. Kai Xiao bent a finger and tapped the table, which was his usual action when discussing things. The principal wiped the sweat from his forehead with his hand, and felt that Kai Xiao seemed to have something else in mind. But the conditions he offered were too tempting. Of course, but I don't know which class Kai Hao wants to join. He believed that the school had a very good reputation in the city, and the situations of each class were different. In addition, with Kai Hao's status, no matter which class he went to, he would definitely be pampered. At this moment, Kai Xiao's gaze fell on a photo hanging on the wall, and a hint of interest flashed in his eyes. This woman. Oh, Mr. Kai, you mean Teacher Fang, right? Mr. Kai has a good eye. Teacher Fang's class is the best in our grade. If Kai Hao is admitted to this class, his studies will definitely improve quickly. The principal took a look and immediately understood and began to introduce it. That photo was a group photo of teachers taken at the beginning of the school year. Although Fang Ni's position was not in the center, she was definitely the most eye-catching. She has an outstanding appearance, and even if she is thrown into a crowd, she will be noticed at first sight. I just didn't expect that Mr. Kai also cares about appearance. Chapter 10 I Can't Help Myself. Kai Xiao listened to the principal's introduction with a satisfied look on his face. It seemed that Kai Hao's continued studies at Mingde Middle School was about to be decided. The principal's facial features were squeezed together when he smiled, like blooming chrysanthemums. Kai Xiao's eyes seemed to pass over Fang Meng's photo vaguely, and fire rose in his belly, burning his mouth and making his tongue dry. It's so annoying. He seemed to be bewitched by this woman, and he couldn't help himself whenever he came into contact with her. His impressive self-control allowed him to keep a clear head, and he looked at Kai Hao with the same indifference as usual. Kai Hao, do you have any objection to studying here? It was obviously just a routine question. A gloom flashed across Kai Hao's eyes, and he turned his head away arrogantly and refused to speak. This is unwilling? This simple action frightened the principal so much that he could not help but break out in a cold sweat. Seeing that the 5 million RMB was about to fly away, he hurriedly and carefully tried to persuade him to stay. Student Kai Hao, if you are worried about the new learning environment, why don't I take you to the class to experience it first? Teacher Fang is friendly and kind, you will definitely like her. In the eyes of the principal, Kai Hao is just an awkward little boy who doesn't want to go to school. Apart from their status, there are many children like this in his school, and they will definitely be well disciplined by the teacher. As Fang Meng was a famous gold medal lecturer at Mingde Middle School, he had great confidence in her professional ability. As long as Kai Hao is willing to join Fang Li's class, Kai Xiao will definitely get the 5 million sponsorship fee. I'm not going. What's so good about going to a crappy place like school? Kai Hao, who had been silent just now, spoke angrily, his little face flushed red. The principal smiled awkwardly but politely, and looked at Kai Xiao for help. Kai Xiao slapped Kai Hao on the thin shoulder, turned his head and nodded to the principal. Please lend me your office for a few minutes, thank you. What did he hear? President Kai actually condescended to say thank you to me? There was a gleam in the principal's eyes. It seems that this kid named Kai Hao is very important to Kai Xiao. Could it be that he is really his illegitimate child as the rumors say? The principal quickly suppressed the gossip in his heart and immediately made room for their uncle and nephew. In the blink of an eye, Kai Xiao and Kai Hao were the only ones left in the principal's office. Kai Xiao sat on the chair, crossed his legs nonchalantly, and looked at Kai Hao with particularly sharp black eyes. Explain. Kai Hao's face was a little pale, but he still expressed his opinion stubbornly. I don't want to go to school. Kai Xiao took out the cigarette box skillfully and was about to light it. After glancing at Kai Hao, he closed the cigarette box and tapped the table with his fingers. What do you want to do? Just lie around at home, play video games and sleep. Kai Xiao's aura of hostility became even stronger, and his coldness made people shudder. Even his nephew Kai Hao couldn't help but shiver. The Kai family doesn't raise useless people. If you grow up to be a useless person, get out of here. Even though Kai Xiao spoke casually, Kai Hao's momentum was still much weaker, and he couldn't even speak clearly. Kai Hao gritted his teeth, thinking about what happened to him before, and hesitated for a while. Then he mustered up his courage again. You can hire a tutor for me and I'll study at home. Anyway, I will never go to school. I won't go even if I die. Very good. Kai Xiao curled his lips in an ambiguous manner. As expected of my nephew, you are really brave. If it were anyone else in the Kai family, they would never dare to speak to me like this, let alone threaten me with death. Seeing this little nephew whom he personally raised. For the first time in his life, Kai Xiao felt a headache. A big hand slammed heavily on the table, and Kai Xiao suddenly stood up, leaving only one sentence. Opposition is invalid. Under the scorching sun, on the playground outside the teaching building, a thin little boy was sitting on the lawn in the middle of the playground, pulling weeds one by one. Tyrant. Second uncle is simply a tyrant. Kai Hao was filled with resentment, but he could only complain about his unreasonable second uncle in his heart. Why not say it? Because doesn't he dare? His second uncle Kai Xiao was the one who had the final say in the Kai family. Even his grandmother didn't dare to object to the decisions he made, let alone his nephew. The more he thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. Little Kai Hao unconsciously pursed his lips, looking like he was about to cry. Fang and her colleagues went out for lunch and saw this scene when they came back. A thin little boy who looked about 8 or 9 years old was sitting on the lawn under the scorching sun, pulling weeds. What's even more strange is that the teacher from the academic affairs office just passed by him and didn't he do anything. Mingder Middle School is the only comprehensive school in City A that integrates primary, junior and senior high school levels. So in order to highlight the school's reputation, the principal specially paved the playground with real grass. The maintenance cost of lawn is quite high, so what the little boy is pulling out again and again is not grass, but naked RMB. Fang Li didn't have much intention to protect the school's property. After all, the teachers in the academic affairs office didn't care, so there was no need for her to meddle in it. But looking at the little guy's angry face, she couldn't help but feel sympathy. She has always liked children, and now she is teaching a second-grade class full of children of this age. Therefore, every time she sees these children of the same age, she will always be more gentle and considerate. Holding a parasol, Fang Ni waved goodbye to her colleagues and came to the little boy. The small parasol completely covered the little guy, but only covered half of Fang Ni's face. The sudden coolness caught Kai Hao's attention, and he looked up and saw the face in front of him. He was a little kid and didn't know any fancy words. He just knew that the older sister in front of him looked very kind, and made him want to get close to her. Little boy, which class are you from? It's so hot outside, why don't you go into the teaching building? Fang Meng only remembered the students in her own class, so when she saw unfamiliar faces in the school, she subconsciously thought they were students from other classes. I don't want to go in. What are you going in for? My second uncle and the principal are processing the admission procedures. How cruel is it to ask him to watch himself go back into the cage? Thinking of this, Kai Hao pulled out another piece of grass and threw it on the ground. Would you rather stay outside in the sun than come in? Fang Shi frowned. He was so tired of studying. Maybe something happened to him. She simply sat down next to him and asked softly, "Can you tell me why you don't want to go in?" Kai Hao took a breath, his face became puffy again, and finally said in a frustrated tone, "I just don't want to go to school." What's good about going to school? As long as I am not allowed to go to school, I can do anything, even if it means attending classes at home every day. I just don't want to come to school. Chapter 11 School Bullying. Fang Xiu was slightly stunned. She didn't expect that the child would be so resistant to going to school. She thought about her words and continued. "Little boy, don't you think it's a very happy thing to study and play sports with other children in school?" However, she didn't expect that when she looked at Kai Hao again, she was met with a pair of red eyes filled with water vapor. They just know how to scold me, bully me, and throw garbage at me. Who would want to play with me? Fang Meng was immediately shocked. Isn't he this typical school bullying? What on earth did this skinny little child go through? Kai Hao didn't want to say it at first, but somehow, seeing Fang Li being as gentle as an intimate older sister, he couldn't help but vent the grievances hidden in his heart. My second uncle doesn't know anything. Even if I'm transferred to a new school, what's the use? After a few days of getting familiar with the school, won't it be the same in the end? It's enough to go through this kind of thing once. Why force me to go through it a second time? Second uncle is a big bad guy, a big devil. Kai Hao's language logic was confusing, but Fang Li, who was best at dealing with children, quickly sorted out the information in the little guy's words. Because he was bullied in his previous school, his second uncle brought him here today to complete the admission procedures. Fang Shi touched the top of his head and smiled. "Don't worry, kid. If something like this happens again at school, you can tell me and I'll help you, okay?" Kai Hao seemed to be infected and looked back at Fang Meng. "Really? Of course, as long as you are willing to tell me, I will definitely not sit idly by." Fang Meng smiled and took the initiative to extend her hand towards Kai Hao. "So, give yourself a chance, okay? But, what if you can't control those people? After all, he is a child with self-esteem, and he hopes that adults will not interfere in this matter." But after hearing Fang Li's words, Kai Hao was still moved. Seeing his childish behavior, Fang Shi felt warm in her heart and said with a smile, "I am a teacher in this school. There are children your age in my class. Do you think I can manage them? Should I be able to?" The little person looked at Fang Meng curiously, not knowing that someone was watching them not far away. At the entrance of the teaching building, Kai Xiao, who had just completed the admission procedures for Kai Hao, recognized the woman holding the parasol for Kai Hao almost instantly. He was used to seeing this woman being shy and nervous, but this was the first time he saw her gentle and lovely side. In front of the children, she seemed to be a patient, considerate and caring sister. But what surprised him was Kai Hao's reaction. He has a cold personality. Kai Hao has been influenced by him since he was a child, and his temperament is also very cold. But now he actually talked to Fang Li for such a long time on the grass. It can be seen that these two people are destined to be together. Kai Xiao raised the corners of his lips, and a faint light flashed in his eyes. Just then, Fang Ni's cell phone rang. The principal called and asked her to go to the principal's office immediately. Kai Hao also saw Kai Xiao standing at the entrance of the teaching building, and said sensibly, "Big sister, you go and do your work first, I'm going to look for my second uncle." "Good." Fang Shi nodded. She didn't know what the principal wanted to talk to her about, but since he called her personally, she had to take it seriously. Watching Kai Hao leave, Fang Li only vaguely saw a tall shadow standing at the entrance of the teaching building. The other person must be the child's second uncle. She felt relieved and went straight to the principal's office. As soon as I entered the door, the principal couldn't wait to say, "Teacher Fang, please get ready. There will be a transfer student joining your class." "What?" Fang Li's face didn't look good. There are 5 classes in the second grade of Mingder Middle School's primary school, with an average of about 25 children in each class. However, because of her reputation as a gold medal lecturer, some capable parents used their connections to send their children to her classes. Now, there are nearly 40 children in her class, and the classroom is almost full of desks and chairs. The more students in a class is not necessarily better. You need to have the energy and time to take care of them. I'm sorry, principal. You should know that the number of students in my class has exceeded the scheduled number. If I continue to accept transfer students, I'm afraid other teachers will have opinions. How could that be? As the saying goes, capable people should do more work. Your ability is known to everyone, and I believe you can handle these matters harmoniously. The principal frowned and felt very unhappy when he saw Fang Mi's embarrassed look. Kai Hao's transfer may determine whether the school can get the 5 million sponsorship fee. If Kai Xiao's only request was to transfer in, then everything would be easy. But now, Kai Xiao specifically asked Kai Hao to enter Fang Meng's class. Just because of Kai Xiao's words, even without the 5 million sponsorship fee, he didn't dare to say no. Not to mention, there is also the 5 million. The principal looked at Fang Shi and suddenly softened his tone, saying, "Teacher Fang, I also know that this will increase your pressure, and I won't let you work for nothing. I heard that your family situation is not very good, and you have withdrawn your salary in advance from the finance department more than once since you came to the school. Well, I'll make the decision. As long as you accept this child and train him carefully, I will give you an extra 10,000 yuan per month on top of your original salary. What do you think?" No matter where you are, talking about ideals and making big promises is far less attractive than the actual benefits you get. Not to mention, the principal's words undoubtedly hit Fang Meng's sore spot. With this extra 10,000 yuan, there will be more room to ease my mother's medical expenses, which can be said to have greatly alleviated her financial pressure. She also doesn't have to sneak around looking for a part-time tutoring job. She bit her lip and secretly thought about the identity and background of this transfer student. The principal came to her personally to ask for her help, and even gave her a 10,000 yuan salary increase. The other party was obviously not simple. That child, could it be the child she saw on the lawn today? Thinking of the child's hesitant and worried look, Fang Shi's heart softened and she said, "Okay, I can agree to add someone." "That's right." The principal nodded with satisfaction. On the other hand, Kai Xiao did not expect that Kai Hao, who had been throwing a tantrum and unwilling to go to school before, now looked eager to try. "Have you really decided?" "Well, didn't my second uncle already handle the transfer procedures for me?" Kai Hao clenched his fists and said, "Since I have to stay here anyway, why don't I give myself a chance?" "He tilde." Kai Xiao chuckled and reached out to touch Kai Hao's head. In just a few minutes, she managed to convince Kai Hao, who hated studying. It seemed that as Mingder's top lecturer, she was really capable. Chapter 12. This principle is not good, change. Kai Xiao's eyes were filled with satisfaction, and he became more interested in Fang Mo. Beneath her noble and reserved appearance, she is completely different from a charming and seductive person. How interesting would it be if the mask of this double-faced life were torn off? As the school bell rang, Fang Ni arrived at the classroom of Class 1, Grade 2 first, and announced to the children as she did in the past that there would be a new friend in the class. The next second I saw the little face I had seen on the playground not long ago. Just as she guessed, the transfer student who came today was indeed that little guy. Fang Miao smiled and was about to speak when a tall figure appeared at the door. When she saw the person's appearance, she took a breath. Kai Xiao. How could it be him? Fang Meng was so shocked that her heart almost stopped for a beat until she heard Kai Hao's timid self-introduction. "Hello, students. My name is Kai Hao." "Kai Hao, Kai Xiao. Same surname. Very good." She finally understood why the teachers in the academic affairs office didn't dare to intervene when the little guy was pulling weeds on the lawn. I guess the devil uncle that the kid just mentioned is undoubtedly Kai Xiao. As the nephew of Kai Xiao, the president of Kai Corporation, no one in this school would dare to stop him even if he turned the lawn from top to bottom. After a round of warm applause, Fang Li thought of how Kai Hao had been bullied in school before, and arranged for a lively and cheerful little girl to be his deskmate. At this time, the subject teacher had already arrived. When Fang Miao was leaving the class, she happened to see two men standing at the classroom door. Kai Xiao, and the principal. Apart from his identity, Kai Xiao's appearance is already exceptionally eye-catching in the crowd. Fang Li's gaze involuntarily fell on Kai Xiao, and the beautiful scenes she had experienced in the past came to her mind uncontrollably. No. Everything was an accident. Kai Xiao was now just a student's parent. She controlled her emotions, listened to the two of them as naturally as possible, and greeted Principal Wang first. Principal Wang didn't know that the two knew each other, but thinking of the 5 million sponsorship fee, he immediately acted as a middleman. Teacher Fang, let me introduce you. This is Kai Hao's parent, Kai Xiao. Boss Kai, this is Teacher Fang. Hello, Teacher Fang. Kai Xiao spoke in a light tone and extended his hand towards Fang Meng. Principal Wang standing by stared in shock. What did he see? Their high and mighty President Kai actually condescended to shake hands with a teacher? You know, even if he arranged Kai Hao to enter the school directly, he didn't get a chance to shake hands with Kai Xiao. Hello, Kai Hao's parent. Fang Ni's attitude was gentle and distant, and she extended her hand politely. Their hands simply touched and then separated, as if they were really the students' parents and teacher meeting for the first time. However, only Fang Niu knew that. When their hands were about to separate, Kai Xiao's fingertips suddenly bent and gently scratched her palm. It didn't feel painful, but it was slightly itchy. Full of ambiguity. Fang Meng was so frightened that her heart almost stopped beating. He is so brave. Principal Wang is still watching from the side. She glared at him in embarrassment, but was met with Kai Xiao's playful eyes. Principal Wang didn't understand what was going on, but when he saw Kai Xiao approved of Fang Meng, he was overjoyed and gave her some advice. Boss Kai, you've seen how patient Teacher Fang is with children. You can rest assured that Kai Hao will be left to her. Kai Xiao nodded and said to Principal Wang expressionlessly, Principal Wang, I want to talk to Teacher Fang alone. Do you think you're in the way? The principal's status was also distinguished, but it was the first time he received an order to expel him. However, when he thought that the other party was Kai Xiao, Principal Wang quickly replied. Okay, you guys can chat first. I have something else to do in the office, so I'll go back first. Anyway, as long as the 5 million can be deposited into the account, he can do whatever he wants. The corridor was empty, but the children in the classroom were reading loudly. Fang Li clenched her hands and secretly distanced herself from Kai Xiao. After 2 encounters, she already knew very clearly that the man in front of her would push her further. But this time is different. Now in school, at the door of her classroom, she absolutely cannot let Kai Xiao do whatever he wants. Just when Fang Li was thinking about how to keep a distance from this dangerous man, unexpectedly, Kai Xiao straightened his face and just stood side by side with her. Teacher Fang, Xiao Hao is very tired of studying, but after chatting with you for a while just now, he told me that he really wants to go to school. So, thank you for accepting him as your student. Kai Xiao changed his previous casual attitude and spoke seriously. It was as if he had always been a parent who was worried about his children, and the inappropriate finger hooking before was just Fang Ni's illusion. Fang Li was stunned for a moment, but when she mentioned Kai Hao, her expression softened a little. Thank you for your trust. 8 or 9 years old is an important stage for the normal physical and mental development of a child. I also hope that I can help him get out of the haze he had before. When Fang Shi thought of the little guy's aggrieved look, she couldn't help but feel sympathy for him. Even though his second uncle was so annoying. But children are children and parents are parents, she can tell the difference. But there is one thing she needs to say in advance. I like to say ugly things up front. I don't like to have an ambiguous relationship with students' parents. I can forget about the past, but from now on, please keep your distance. Thank you. The man's magnetic voice suddenly came. You don't have an affair with the students' parents, do you? Kai Xiao's voice was cold, but he deliberately added a hint to the end of his voice, which seemed to be a hook and instantly attracted Fang Li's attention. She could ignore everything else, but when facing Kai Xiao, she had to make this matter clear. Yes, this is my principle. Please respect it. Fang Li, who had already turned away, turned back again, speaking righteously while not forgetting to keep a safe distance from Kai Xiao. In principle. Kai Xiao looked into Fang Meng's eyes, his lips slightly curved. Before Fang Meng could react, he pulled her arm with one hand and leaned forward in an ambiguous manner. The distance between the two of them was getting closer and closer, so close that Fang Ni's nostrils were filled with the smell of tobacco lingering on Kai Xiao's body. This principle is not good, change it. There was no room for negotiation or rebuttal. Kai Xiao's tone was overbearing and authoritarian, and he was completely informing Fang Meng. Fang Meng was instantly annoyed. He was so serious just now, but now he is acting crazy. Mr. Kai, I have nothing to do with you. What did she think she was? Was she the president of Kai Corporation, his property? Fang Meng, with fire burning in her heart, suddenly felt rebellious and immediately stretched out her little hand to push away Kai Xiao's body that was right in front of her. It's a pity that someone is one step ahead of her. A cool and soft touch came from her exposed neck. Just as Fang Ni was shocked by the source of the touch, Kai Xiao's mouth suddenly exerted force. With such ambiguous actions, even if Fang Ni was slow-witted, she could still guess what the other party had done to her. Chapter 13. Red is beautiful. He is absolutely crazy. Thinking of her current environment, Fang Ni suppressed the scream from her mouth and struggled hard to escape from Kai Xiao's confinement. She immediately covered her neck and glared at Kai Xiao indignantly, wishing that this man would completely disappear in front of her in the next second. Unexpectedly, the other party just asked back with a light smile. Red ones look better, don't they? This red color could only be the mark left by Kai Xiao on her body. Kai Xiao, what on earth do you want to do? Fang Li could no longer bear it. She admitted that the first time they got confused, she was not clear-headed and recognized the wrong person, but everything that happened afterwards was initiated by this man. Now he's causing trouble at school. Does he want to destroy himself? Don't you know what I want to do? The slightly rising ending tone is full of ambiguity. Kai Xiao always said something shocking in front of Fang Meng. Just at this moment, someone passed by the two of them, and Fang Li was so scared that she immediately pretended nothing had happened and kept a distance from Kai Xiao, fearing that he would utter some vicious words again. We have finished our discussion, please leave here immediately. In order to show her attitude, Fang Li even made an inviting gesture. A gleam of light flashed in Kai Xiao's eyes. As the president of Kai Group, he is always the center of attention wherever he goes. He is always flattered by others. This is the first time that he has been ordered to leave. Very good, she is worthy of being the woman he has slept with. Kai Xiao relied on his height advantage to get close to Fang Meng and quietly controlled her in place. His lips were thin, and he lowered his head slightly, pressing his thin lips against her sensitive ear. Tell me, if I tell your principal now that I want you to sleep with me before I transfer the sponsorship fee, will he agree? 5 million, you can't earn that even if you teach for a lifetime, right? Fang Li's face was pale and blue. No wonder the principal, who is usually such a high-handed person, would condescend to come here with Kai Xiao. It turns out it was all for Kai's sponsorship fee. Dear parent, your sponsorship fee has not been transferred into my account, so it seems inappropriate to ask me this question. Fang Ni turned and left. At this moment, the bell for the end of get out of class suddenly rang. The classroom door opened to the children's cheers of liberation. Little Kai Hao was the first to rush out to look for Fang Meng, but he saw his second uncle beside her. Uncle, Teacher Fang, what are you talking about? I want to listen too. The little guy has a chubby face and a rosy face. It seems that he gets along well with his new classmates. Kai Xiao felt much more relieved. He touched Kai Hao's head, which was very rare for him. He looked up and said goodbye to Fang Meng. Teacher Fang, I'll leave my Kai Hao to you. Fang Li just felt that Kai Xiao would change his expression. He was flirting just now, but now in front of Kai Hao, he looks like a serious parent. But now she just wanted to get rid of Kai Xiao, the plague god, and was too lazy to care about it. Okay, take care. She bit her tongue and swallowed the two words, I won't see you off, which could truly express her feelings. Just as she was pulling Kai Hao back to the classroom, a familiar figure instantly caught her attention. The woman's face was flushed, her eyes were full of spring, and she looked like a perfect match. As if seeing that she was about to leave, Wan Ying quickly stepped forward and grabbed Fang Meng's arm. Teacher Fang, who was that person who just spoke to you? Why does he look so familiar? Wan Ying's eyes were full of spring, and it was obvious that she was trying to trick Fang Ni into talking. If it were someone else, they would definitely not give away such good resources as Kai Xiao to others for nothing. Unfortunately, the person she asked was Fang Meng. She wished someone could take Kai Xiao away so that he wouldn't be hanging around in front of her all the time. Looking at Kai Xiao's leaving back, Fang Li said seriously. Do you know Kai? He is the president of Kai Xiao. Wan Ying's eyes lit up when she heard this. The day passed quickly. Fang Shi felt extremely relieved when she saw the children in her class walking out of the classroom one by one with their school bags on their backs, and not forgetting to turn back and say they would see them tomorrow. Kai Hao was the last child to leave the class because he was a little slow in packing up. Teacher Fang, aren't you going home? Home? This familiar yet unfamiliar word made Fang Ni's heart ache. Ever since her father became addicted to gambling and her mother fell ill, she no longer felt at home. Fang, she curved her eyebrows and smiled, the teacher lives in the school. After sending you away, I will go back to the dormitory. She took Kai Hao's little hand and walked out of the classroom door. Outside the teaching building, the black Land Rover looks majestic and impressive, attracting the attention of everyone on the playground. Butler Liu saw Kai Hao from a distance and got out of the car to greet him respectfully. Kai Xiao, who was wearing a casual suit, stood next to the butler. The little guy waved goodbye to Fang Meng, quickened his pace, and pounced into Kai Xiao's arms. Uncle, you are so busy, why did you come to pick me up? Kai Xiao pinched the tip of Kai Hao's nose. Today is the first day for the young master of the Kai family to go to school. How can I not come? Besides, he had other things to do. Kai Xiao's eyes swept across the figure at the entrance of the teaching building. I don't know why, but after meeting Fang Meng, Kai Xiao felt like he suddenly had a rebellious bone in his head. The more this woman wanted to distance herself from him, the more he didn't want her to succeed. Catching sight of Fang Meng's figure, Kai Xiao raised the corners of his lips. The unaware little guy just thought that his uncle was concerned about him and immediately became excited. Second uncle, I know you are the best. Kai Xiao got out of the car and watched Kai Hao get in. Then he said to Butler Liu, you go back first. Second uncle, aren't you going with us? Kai Hao asked, puzzled. Well, there is something I need to talk to teacher Fang about. The smile on Kai Xiao's lips deepened. Fang Li took a few steps back vigilantly, preparing to leave. She put herself in the right position. Except for Koike Hiroshi, no one else has anything to do with her. Unfortunately, it was useless for her to speed up her pace. Kai Xiao caught up with her in a few steps, found the right moment, stretched out his long arms, and pulled her into the corner of the teaching building. Fang Li screamed subconsciously, but she smelled the unique scent of Kai Xiao. Then, hot and wet breath sprayed behind her ears. When I pulled you in just now, there was a woman 5 meters behind you. She should be passing by now. Kai Xiao's last tone was teasing, and he nonchalantly let go of the hand that was covering Fang Meng. If it were someone else, Kai Xiao would just stand there, and both men and women would rush up to him. Only when facing Fang Meng, this woman avoided him like the plague, but he still forced himself on her, and instead felt a kind of pleasure of pursuit. Chapter 14. No, not here. Kai Xiao, what on earth do you want to do? Fang Li could no longer bear it and glared at the other party angrily. Unexpectedly, Kai Xiao put one hand on his lips and kindly reminded him. If you speak any louder, they will come over here, which will not be good for your image as a people's teacher. Kai Xiao certainly doesn't care about these. But Fang Meng is a teacher in this school. If she were seen acting like this with a student as parent, it would really affect her image as a role model. So, this reminder almost strangled her lifeline. She deliberately lowered her voice, and did not look happy when facing Kai Xiao. There's nothing much to talk about between us, so what do you want to do? No. Why do I feel like I have a lot of things I want to talk to teacher Fang about? For example. A big warm hand touched her perky buttocks, very intimately. Fang Li wanted to escape as if she was electrocuted, but the opponent's other claw grabbed her waist. Fang Ni's waist was so slender that it could be held in one hand, but just pinching it made Kai Xiao feel itchy. Thinking of how Fang Ni was treated by him at her workplace, he couldn't help but feel moved. His hand seemed to have its own consciousness, sneaking in silently. Don't want. Fang Li stretched out her hands to stop him in fear. Her 2 hands, one big and one small, pushed each other in resistance through the smooth and soft silk cloth. Strange yet familiar emotions surged over her, and she looked timidly into the other person's eyes, her face full of pleading. Kai Xiao smiled evilly and shook his head meaningfully. I forgot to tell you, Mr. Fang, that medical device case, I haven't signed it yet. Medical devices. When Fang Meng thought of her mother who was suffering from illness in the hospital, tears of grievance instantly filled her eyes. This man is simply a devil. He can always easily take advantage of her weakness, leaving her without even the right to beg for mercy. Fang Meng choked with pain, and finally her reason was defeated, and she became addicted to it like a broken jar. Boss Kai, please. The infatuated Kai Xiao's voice was already hoarse, and he managed to squeeze out a single sound. What do you want from me? No, not here. As long as her mother can use this batch of medical equipment, she is willing to do anything. But, not here, not at school. Otherwise, how would she face her students? Hotel, shall we go to the hotel? She seemed to have grasped a life-saving straw and discussed it with Kai Xiao. Kai Xiao glanced at the surrounding environment. Although it is exciting in the corner, I can't do many things. I can only watch but not eat, which is very uncomfortable. It would be better to do my Ni a favor and let her repay you when the time comes. Good. Kai Xiao let go of her hand, and his gentle voice was close to her ear, which made her misunderstand that the man in front of her also had a gentle and considerate side. Fang she suppressed a cry of surprise and patted her flushed face before she barely regained consciousness. But the next second, a surprised voice suddenly appeared. Teacher Fang. Who is this handsome guy? Why haven't I seen him before? Why don't you introduce him to me? The voice came too suddenly. Fang Mi looked at Ruan Ying's face and saw that there was nothing unusual, so she felt relieved. Ruan Ying is a loudmouth and likes to make up her own dirty rumors. What would happen if Ruan Ying saw what happened between her and Kai Xiao? This is Mr. Kai Xiao, the president of Kai Corporation, and now he is the parent of my student. Ruan Ying's eyes were almost glued to Kai Xiao. Fang she thought to herself, this woman is really good at pretending. I asked her on purpose before. With Ruan Ying's personality, even if she didn't know who Kai Xiao was, she would definitely check it out secretly after knowing the words, President Kai. She said this on purpose because she wanted to get to know Kai Xiao openly through her own hand. However, Ruan Ying was very lucky as she happened to run into Fang Meng's gun when she was trying to escape from Kai Xiao. She was just about to introduce her roommate to Kai Xiao, but Ruan Ying didn't give her the chance and directly smiled at Kai Xiao like a flower. Hello Mr. Kai, my name is Ruan Ying, and I'm a colleague of Teacher Fang. Although Kai Xiao, who has always been popular, has not seen countless women, he has seen many women who come to him on their own initiative. He didn't take Ruan Ying seriously at all, his attention was completely focused on Fang Meng. She actually looks quite happy. This woman, does she really want to get rid of herself? Did she forget how she begged me just now? Seeing that Kai Xiao had not responded to her for a long time, Ruan Ying withdrew her hand awkwardly and tried to find a topic to talk about. Mr. Kai, I saw your nephew today. The little boy named Kai Hao is sensible and well behaved. He is so cute. Kai Xiao had a blank expression on his face, and it was not clear that he was angry. Ruan Ying, with a flattering look on her face, pulled Kai Xiao aside and talked about this and that. Fang Li watched everything happening before her eyes. It seems that I am the only one who is redundant. That's really great. She carefully found a way in between Ruan Ying's words and interrupted her. Well, you two can chat slowly. I'm going to go back first. She was not interested in the conversation between the two people at all. Instead of standing here stupidly, she wanted to go back to the dormitory early, take a nice bath and relax. Kai Xiao looked at Fang Meng's leaving back, and his dark eyes instantly narrowed. We just agreed to go to the hotel, and you forgot about it right away. When he looked at Ruan Ying's flattering face again, he just felt it was an eyesore. Teacher Ruan, are you finished? If it weren't for Ruan Ying's chattering, how could Kai Xiao let Fang Meng leave so easily? Ruan Ying noticed the man's emotions, and even though she was in the middle of a conversation, she couldn't help but shut her mouth. Mr. Kai, are you unhappy? She asked tentatively, feeling extremely nervous. In order to meet Kai Xiao in person, she deliberately postponed her afternoon class, put on makeup early, and waited at the school gate. Now that I finally meet her, you treat her like this? Why am I happy? Kai Xiao's tone was unfriendly. Facing this woman who disturbed his relationship with Fang Miao, he was able to answer her because they were colleagues. Only then did Ruan Ying realize that Kai Xiao's gaze had been fixed on the direction Fang Meng had left. Combined with the time when the other party's attitude changed, she quickly came to a conclusion that made her furious. Compared to himself, Kai Xiao was more interested in that bitch Fang Meng. She gave up the title of the school's gold medal lecturer. She didn't get a promotion or a raise at work. But Kai Xiao, the president of Kai Group, now also has his eyes on Fang Meng. What's so good about that bitch? Who knows what she's like in private? Mr. Kai, you seem to care about Teacher Fang a lot. When Fang Meng was mentioned, Kai Xiao turned his gaze to Ruan Ying, but did not speak. But that meaningful look had already revealed the fact that he was interested in Fang Mo. Chapter 15 Out of Time. Ruan Ying was secretly annoyed, but also a little proud. Fang Meng, no matter how beautiful you are and how much you can attract a good man like Kai Xiao, what does it matter? I can stop your romantic opportunities with just a few words. You can't judge a person by his appearance, but you can know his heart. Don't be fooled by the fact that teacher Fang is pretty and kind to children. In fact, she is very open behind the scenes. Ruan Ying deliberately used a sighing tone and spoke ambiguous words. Ruan Ying approached Kai Xiao seriously, and did not forget to cover her mouth with her hand while she was talking, as if she was afraid that others would see it. A few days ago, I saw teacher Fang returning to the dormitory with red marks all over her body, and she didn't come home at night for several days in a row. Isn't this just to hook up with men? With Mr. Fang's conditions, do we still need to fish? Kai Xiao knew very well how much he couldn't let go of that body and how many traces of affection it left. Ruan Ying thought that Kai Xiao was not aware of the truth and that was why he was interested in Fang Ni, so she quickly explained to him, if you are just looking for a man, of course you don't need to hook her. But what if you are looking for a rich man? Ruan Ying sneered and said, look at you, you must not know yet, right? Teacher Fang's mother is sick and hospitalized, and she needs a lot of medical expenses every month. The hospital has called to collect the debt. I heard this with my own ears. But she only went out for one night and paid her mother's medical expenses. I told her that she sold herself, but she was not happy to hear it. Tell me, with all those marks on her body that are so ambiguous, and she makes money so quickly, what else could it be but selling herself? Kai Xiao thought of the IOU that Fang Li had written to him personally, and seemed to understand the whole story. Fang Li was so short of money, yet she still refused to accept his 100,000 yuan. He thinks the little woman is becoming more and more adorable. What should he do? Ruan Ying didn't know what Kai Xiao was thinking, she just felt that the more he talked, the more excited he became, and the more excited he became, the more he talked without limits. Also, when she gets off work, there is always a man waiting to pick her up in a car, and it's never the same every time. Kai Xiao suddenly remembered what Fang Li had admitted in front of him about her boyfriend who sold medical equipment. It seems his name is Yang Chenrong. Kai Xiao's face instantly turned gloomy, and he completely forgot that he was the third party who intervened in other people's relationships. After this woman had me, she was still entangled with other men. Teacher Ruan, it's very pleasant to chat with you. I'll go back first. Go back and think of a way to make Fang Ni completely submit to his suit pants, and never allow her to think about other men. Ruan Ying looked at Kai Xiao's darkening face and felt very proud. She knew that how could a man of Kai Xiao's status like her like a fickle and unrestrained woman. She hummed a song as she walked towards the dormitory, but saw Fang Meng's good friend Kong Ling. After saying hello, Ruan Ying continued her smear campaign. Ruan Ying said sarcastically, Kong Ling, you are her best friend, you have to persuade her. As teachers, we are role models, and the most important thing for us is our reputation. She goes out to sell things every day. If her crime is exposed one day, she will lose her stable job at the school. This advice sounded earnest, but in reality, it was saying that Fang Meng was fooling around outside every day. Kong Ling was extremely shocked when she heard this. Fang Li has another man now? As her best friend, how could I not know anything about this? But if she had another man, she probably wouldn't seduce her boyfriend anymore, right? Kong Ling's eyes flickered, and no one knew what she was thinking. While they were talking, Fang Li had already gone downstairs. She was wearing a white slim-fitting dress with a hollow lace design on her chest that completely covered her fair skin, yet it was only vaguely visible, making her look even more beautiful and charming. Kong Ling, who is also a woman, couldn't help but feel envious when she saw this. Nianiao, you have a great figure. No wonder it can be sold, this is capital. Fang Li had no idea what Kong Ling was thinking. She thought she was being praised and she held onto Kong Ling's arm awkwardly. Let's go quickly. It's better not to keep people waiting for a long time in this kind of situation. She just suddenly received a call from Yang Chenrong. Kai wanted to meet to discuss the cooperation in detail, and especially wanted to have a deeper understanding of the advantages and disadvantages of the equipment. Yang Chenrong asked her to be present on the grounds that she had negotiated the cooperation, so she changed into a slightly more formal dress. In order to express Yang's sincerity, Yang Chenrong specially booked a private room in the largest hotel in City A. He was waiting in the private room to receive the people from the Kai group. When he called Fang Meng, he felt that Fang Meng was reluctant to come, so he specially sent Kong Ling to pick her up. When the two arrived, Yang Chenrong was wearing formal attire and waiting in the lobby on the first floor. Kong Ling saw her boyfriend at first sight, and her eyes immediately became starry. But before she could say anything, Yang Chenrong came up to Fang Meng and gave her an extremely appreciative comment. "Nyan Nyan, you look so beautiful today." His eyes were bright, and even his cheeks were a little red, not sure if it was because of excitement or something else. Looking at Kong Ling's stiff face, Fang Li awkwardly stroked the non-existent wrinkles on her skirt. "Did you two discuss this? You both said the same thing when praising me. If that's the case, I won't talk to you two anymore." Yang Chenrong woke up. His official girlfriend Kong Ling was still beside him, so it was really inappropriate for him to say such things. Really? Otherwise, how can we say that we are in sync with each other? Yang Chenrong chuckled twice, and seeing that Kong Ling's face was turning pale, he stretched out his arm to Fang Meng, motioning her to take it, and did not forget to urge her. "Kai's people have been here for a long time, waiting for you. Let's go in quickly." Kong Ling did not have any position in the Yarn group, so she absolutely could not enter such occasions without Yang Chenrong's approval. Seeing Fang Meng gently holding Yang Chenrong, Kong Ling's jealous eyes wished she could turn into a knife and cut Fang Meng into pieces. The two walked towards the private room. Fang Li couldn't help but think, since Kai's people came to discuss cooperation, would Kai Xiao come? If he comes, will he mention the hotel? At that time, she only wanted to get rid of the man's entanglement, and she agreed to go to the hotel in desperation. She regretted it afterwards. How could she be so bold as to agree to such a bold thing? Yang Chenrong opened the door of the private room very gentlemanly. Fang Meng subconsciously looked around the room and found that Kai Xiao was not there, so she breathed a sigh of relief. However, the layout of the private room was very strange. Although the space was large, there was a large screen with a landscape painting directly behind the round table, which blocked the space behind the screen and made the entire room seem narrow. Chapter 16. I just like bullying her. For this cooperation, Yang Chenrong put in a lot of effort and placed a lot of white wine on the round table, which made Fang Meng secretly shocked. Yang Chenrong couldn't drink much, so before entering the room, Kong Ling specifically reminded Fang Meng not to let Yang Chenrong drink too much. But wine is an indispensable part of domestic dining culture, especially when discussing cooperation. As a result, Fang Meng, as someone on Yang Chenrong's side, inevitably had to drink a lot. No matter how much she drank, after 3 glasses of red wine, her face turned slightly red. She shook her head vigorously, barely able to stay awake. Little did they know that this scene made the Kai group manager chuckle in his eyes. "Manager Yang, do you think Miss Fang has drunk too much? Why don't we stop drinking?" As if to suit the occasion, Manager Kai lowered his hand that had already picked up the wine glass again. Yang Chenrong said quickly, "No, I finally got together with a few brothers today, how can we not drink to our heart's content?" He quietly turned his eyes to look at Fang Miao, and so that her cheeks were flushed and her eyes were blurred. The fragrance of red wine was spreading silently from her body, just like an aphrodisiac, making him want to tear off her annoying skirt immediately so that he could possess her. Yang Chenrong's body became hot uncontrollably, but facing the Kai group's supervisor, he could only endure it. However, in order to prevent Fang Miao from being taken advantage of by others, he had to let Fang Miao stay away for a while. He picked up the bottle and took the opportunity to pour the wine. He walked past Fang Meng and whispered in her ear, "If you are drunk, don't stay here. Go behind the screen and drink some tea to sober up. I'll take care of the rest." Fang Meng thought of Kong Ling's instructions and looked at Yang Chenrong worriedly. "And you?" Yang Chenrong felt warm in his heart and waved the half-empty red wine bottle in front of her. "Don't worry, I only pour them wine, not drink it." Fang Xiu showed a clear expression, barely supported her body, and staggered to the back of the screen, but she heard the gurgling sound of mountain streams. Looking up, I saw that there was a rockery behind the screen, and the gurgling sound was the sound of water flowing on the rockery. A set of tea sets is placed next to the rockery. The tea has been poured and is quietly placed aside, as if waiting for someone to taste it. "Tea can help you sober up." Fang Shi went over without thinking, picked up the teacup and drank it all in one gulp. A cool breeze with the scent of tea rushed to her throat, and she finally woke up a little from the drowsiness. Suddenly, her hair was touched and a warm hand touched her shoulder. "Is the tea good?" The voice came out of nowhere, and frightened Fang Ni. The moment he looked back, he saw Kai Xiao's face with a meaningful smile. "How did you?" Before she finished her words, she saw Kai Xiao put a finger on his lips, and did not forget to use his eyes to indicate the other side of the screen. The sound of Yang Chenrong and the others toasting each other reached Fang Meng's ears. Fang Meng quickly covered her mouth and dared not make a sound. Kai Xiao slowly sat down beside Fang Meng, touched her exquisite body with his big hand, and gave an evaluation as if in praise. So good. He touched the hair on her forehead, and his fingertips followed the contact of her face to her pink cheek and pinched it gently. Fang Meng's body trembled. She was drunk, and her reaction and mobility were greatly reduced. In Kai Xiao's eyes, she looked like a drunken, innocent girl, which made him even more excited. He never made things difficult for himself, and while Fang Meng was still in a daze, he grabbed her wrist, picked her up by the waist, kicked open the door on the other side of the screen, and walked into another room. The layout of the private room was much simpler than the previous one. There were no screens, no swivel tables or chairs, only a large round table with a soft bed. Kai Xiao placed Fang Meng on the round table, his dark eyes deep as he watched the woman's reaction quietly. After leaving the danger zone, Fang Li finally dared to make a sound. She opened her blurry eyes and saw everything unfamiliar in front of her. She forced herself to ask, "Boss Kai, why did you bring me here? How can you stay sober after drinking so much?" Kai Xiao's eyes lit up, as if he had discovered a new world. Without waiting for his answer, Fang Meng, who had figured out everything, finally regained a bit of consciousness, struggled to prop up her body and sat up. She couldn't be alone with this man, it was too dangerous. "I want to go back." Kai Xiao said nothing as he watched Fang Ni get up and stagger away. Suddenly he stretched out his arm and exerted a little force. Fang Ni, who had finally gotten up, fell back onto the bed on the round table like cotton. Fang Li struggled to stand up again and tried her best to argue with Kai Xiao. "I'm here to discuss business, not to accompany you." She gritted her teeth and swallowed the word, sleep. What he got was Kai Xiao's even worse behavior. In front of Fang Meng, Kai Xiao's big hand gently covered the bulge on her chest through her clothes. Fang Ni instinctively wanted to hide, but she heard the other party's infinitely charming voice. "Don't you think that at a time like this, accompanying me well is the key to whether this cooperation can be successful? My, Mr. Fang." The ending sounds of the three words, "Teacher Fang," are infinitely extended, which makes people think about it. But when Fang Mao heard it, she felt a sense of taboo that was difficult to describe in words. She is a teacher, how could she be treated like this in a private room? The feeling of shame surged up, and Fang Ni covered her cheeks as if she had been electrocuted. "Stop talking." She felt she had tarnished her profession. Little did he know that this was exactly who Kai Xiao wanted to see her. This title brought infinite tension and excitement to this contact, and made Fang Meng appear unusual in his eyes. He maliciously wanted to see more. "I want to see how charming Fang Meng can be when she is surrounded by shame." "Why not?" Kai Xiao stretched out his big hand and tucked the hair scattered around her cheek behind her ear, while his other hand unzipped her skirt. "Teacher Fang, can I call you this from now on?" "Kai Xiao, do you really have to do this?" The moment the little hand moved away, Fang Ni's tearful eyes were revealed. Teacher is her profession and it is sacred. She would not allow it to be tainted in the slightest. Kai Xiao moved his big hand away, distanced himself from Fang Meng, and looked down at her. "If you don't want this, it depends on your performance." Fang Li's eyes met the other person's. She knew exactly how he meant it. "No." She shook her head violently. "I will never have an affair with a student's parents, Kai Xiao, please don't force me." "Really?" Kai Xiao smiled meaningfully. "Who told me in the corner of the teaching building that I could go to the hotel?" It seemed like he just had a bad taste and enjoyed bullying her. Whether it's verbal or in bed. Seeing her tearful eyes, his desire that had been suppressed for more than 30 years swelled even more. Chapter 17 The Instigator. Fang Li suddenly raised her head and glared at him angrily. "At that time, if I didn't say that, would you let me go?" Could it be that she was really waiting for Kai Xiao to leave her alone in the corner and then be seen by Ruan Ying, who would catch up later? When she thought of Ruan Ying's sudden appearance, she couldn't help but feel scared. If she saw that kind of scene, would I still be able to stay in Mingder Middle School? "It seems that you know me well." While enjoying the soft touch of her skin, Kai Xiao pulled his hand back to touch her pointed chin. Is it his illusion? "Fang Ni, you seem to have lost weight." Being thin affects the feel of his hands, so he has to find a chance to gain some weight back. But that's for later, as for now. Why don't you think of something to say now so that I can let you go? He liked the way Fang Meng begged for mercy. When her wet eyes looked at him, she looked like an innocent and pitiful little white rabbit. Perhaps it was because this woman usually looked like she wanted to cut off all ties with him, so her sobbing and begging appearance could touch his emotions even more. Having said that, there is one thing he still wants to remind you. There's only a door between us and your boyfriend. Do you think he'll suddenly open the door and barge in? Kai Xiao emphasized the word boyfriend. He couldn't help getting angry when he thought about having to share all the good things about Fang Meng with a loser like Yang Chenrong. You are despicable. Relying on the fact that he didn't dare to make a big deal out of it, Kai Xiao threatened him again and again. But unfortunately, she had no ability to resist. This adjective is really good. Kai Xiao is the young master of the Kai family who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and no one has ever dared to evaluate him like this. His big palm rubbed back and forth on Fang Meng's sensitive neck, feeling the layers of tremors rising there, and he was very satisfied. He was very satisfied with both the adjective and Fang Ni's reaction. Suddenly, his big hand turned and pulled hard. The cold air suddenly hit Fang Ni and she swallowed the scream in her throat, but she could only rely on instinct to cover her private areas with her arms. It's a pity that everything is in vain. Kai Xiao looked at the tempting tool for relieving sexual desire in front of him and pounced on it like a hungry wolf. Fang Meng, it is reasonable for you to vent the anger that your boyfriend has caused. A gleam of light flashed in his black eyes, then quickly faded away. Because he wants to enjoy the beauty of the woman in his arms. In the private room, Yang Chenrong and the manager of Kai's company had already been drinking for several rounds, but the other party had no intention of getting to the point. He tried to force his way into the topic, but the other party doubted the company's sincerity, so he didn't dare to bring it up again. Yang Chenrong didn't have much of a drinking capacity to begin with, and thanks to Fang Mi's help in blocking his way, he was able to maintain his strength and fight with Kai's people at the drinking table until now. Fang Li had not come back since she went behind the screen to drink tea. She must have fallen asleep. But Yang Chenrong shook the red wine in his glass, and the scene before him showed a double shadow. If we don't start talking about serious matters, he'll probably pass out drunk at the table. Little did he know that just when he was worried, the Kai manager who was reluctant to give in clicked on his phone, and his eyes, which were originally drunk, instantly became clear again. Manager Yan, we've almost finished drinking, let's get down to business. Yang Chenrong was waiting for this moment, and immediately started introducing his own products as if he had been injected with chicken blood. The conversation lasted for more than 2 hours, and Manager Kai even took notes on Yang Chenrong's speech. Near the end of the event, Fang Li staggered out from behind the screen. Her face was flushed, her hair was disheveled, and even her skirt was wrinkled, making her look particularly disheveled. However, the instigator of all this was Kai Xiao. That beast had actually been holding me down on the round table until now. There was no break in between, not even for a minute. Undergoing high-intensity sensory stimulation and physical exhaustion, Fang Li's steps became unsteady. She forced herself to walk to the table with her weak body, but she could no longer hold on and sat down awkwardly amid everyone's suspicious gazes. Just as she was racking her brains to think of how to explain her horrible appearance to everyone, Yang Chenrong immediately rushed up. Nyan Nyan, I asked you to drink some tea to sober up, but why did you fall asleep behind the screen? How could you not have a sore back after sleeping on your stomach for so long? Don't do this again in the future, okay? Fang Meng couldn't handle this. Is Yang Chenrong blaming himself for falling asleep while sobering up, or is he concerned about his back pain? But this reason is quite relevant to my current situation. I'm sorry, Manager Yan, I was so drunk that I didn't know anything. How could I care where I slept? She said very apologetically. This apology comes from her heart. After all, no matter what the process was, it was indeed himself who left Yang Chenrong here alone to face the Kai family's people. Manager Kai is a man who knows how to talk. Miss Fang must be really drunk, otherwise how could she not hear our heated conversation? It's not certain that you can get a good rest even if you take a break temporarily. I think we should just go home today. Manager Yan, you should also take Miss Fang home and have a good rest. He raised the notes in his hand and said, I will report today's conversation to Mr. Kai word for word. Whether it succeeds or not, all that's missing is Mr. Kai's signature. Yang Chenrong looked back at the other party excitedly, then I'd like to ask you to put in a good word for our case. Manager Kai had experienced a lot of storms, so he patted his shoulder nonchalantly. I will say everything I need to say. Just keep this case to yourself. Mr. Kai is very interested in your product. It will probably just be a formality when it comes to him. Fang Mi couldn't help but complain inwardly when she heard this. She didn't know whether it was just a formality. But she paid a heavy price for this case. What is it like to be fucked so hard that your legs can't close? Fortunately, she was wearing a skirt today. If she was wearing pants, people would see her legs that couldn't be closed. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? Only after sending Kai's people away did Fang Mo dare to show her weakness. In the lobby on the first floor, Fang Miao sat on the sofa. She seemed to have been drained of all her strength and didn't even have the energy to move. Kong Ling, who was waiting outside, felt something was wrong and ran over immediately. Nyan Nyan, what's wrong with you? You look very tired. Fang Meng rubbed her sore legs and before she could speak, Yang Chenrong gave the answer for her. Mian Miao got drunk and fell asleep in the private room. She is very tired now. Let's send her back to the dormitory first. When Kong Ling saw Yang Chenrong's face full of concern, a bitter feeling welled up in her heart. Yang Chenrong is obviously her boyfriend, but he cares about her best friend so much. It's all Fang and I's fault. It's bad enough that she has no charm and can't attract men, but she actually sets her sights on her own boyfriend. That's so abominable. Chapter 18, Can't Afford to Squander. Kong Ling thought so, but it was difficult to express it in front of Yang Chenrong, so she stood aside and asked indifferently. How are you doing now? Do you want me to help you? Fang Li was so embarrassed when she thought about the reason why her legs were weak. How could she have the nerve to let Kong Ling support her? She waved her hands to refuse. No, I can walk by myself, just a little slower, please don't look down on me. Look at what you said. Yang Chenrong took over the conversation. You are the main force at the table today, and you are a great contributor to our Yang family. I can dislike anyone but you. He wasn't lying. Ever since Fang Mai left the table, the people of the Kai family have been drinking much less. Otherwise, with their limited alcohol tolerance, they would not be able to hold out for long. Little did she know that the word main force sounded in double quotation marks when it fell into Fang Mao's ears. Yang Chenrong was accompanying the supervisor of Kai Group, and she was accompanying the president of Kai Group. The word main force was well deserved. A feeling of shame suddenly surged up in Fang Ni, but when she thought that her mother in the hospital would soon have access to the right medical equipment, she felt that no matter how much she paid, it was worth it. After resting for a while, she felt her legs had regained some strength. She stood up and walked forward with difficulty. Kong Ling followed behind Fang Meng, and when her eyes fell on a certain place, her body stiffened. She narrowed her eyes slightly and saw Fang Meng was about to get on the car, so she rushed over. Nyan Nyan, wait a minute. What's wrong? Fang Shi asked in confusion. Just as she was about to turn around to look at Kong Ling, she heard Kong Ling say, Don't move. Your zipper is unzipped. Let me help you unzip it. Only then did Fang Li feel that her back was unusually loose. She immediately stood still, waiting for Kong Ling's help. Kong Ling pulled up the zipper, but instead of pulling it all the way up, she gently pulled it outwards. This surprising move made Fang Meng nervous immediately. What's wrong? Is it hard to pull? Kai Xiao is a very open-minded guy, and maybe he has left an ambiguous hatred on her back. What would happen if Kong Ling saw this? Now that the arrow is on the string, she can only pray that Kai Xiao, that beastly subordinate, has a plan and doesn't randomly stamp her on the back. How come? It's okay. Kong Ling zipped up her clothes and patted Fang Ni's back with a calm expression. Ni has such a good figure without any extra fat. Zipping up her clothes shouldn't be a piece of cake, right? After hearing what Kong Ling Nuor said, Fang Mai finally felt relieved. The three of them got in the car, and the topic Yang Chenrong brought up was always about today's drinking party. Fang Ni was extremely tired, but she had to respond to avoid a dull moment. However, Kong Ling could not participate no matter what because she did not participate. Half an hour later, the car finally arrived at Mingder Middle School. Fang Meng ended her torture, waved goodbye to Yang Chenrong and Kong Ling, and got off the car. Yang Chenrong kept staring at the rearview mirror until Fang Meng's figure completely disappeared from the rearview mirror, then he started the car again and sped away. Kong Ling and Yang Chenrong have been in love for many years, and she can guess what the other is thinking just by looking at him. She asked sarcastically. Yang Chenrong, do you care about me? Yang Chenrong was puzzled. What are you talking about? You are my girlfriend, who should I care about if not you? Kong Ling sneered. I see you care about my bestie more than you care about me. Yang Chenrong glanced at her impatiently. I really don't know what you are thinking about. Meng Meng is your best friend and a colleague in my company. Isn't it normal to send her back to the dormitory normally? Oh. I have to say that Yang Chenrong's reasons are reasonable. Unfortunately, Kong Ling didn't believe it, but she was too lazy to argue with him about it. It's not important whether I'm just imagining things. Chen Rong, you didn't see that the zipper on Ni's back was open, and the marks on it were really amazing. You said her legs were weak just now, was it because of a man? Yang Chenrong stepped on the brakes and leaned forward due to inertia. Without waiting to sit still, he retorted to Kong Ling. Stop talking nonsense. Nio has been drinking since she entered the private room, and then she fell asleep. Where did this man come from? Besides, she is your best friend. What good will it do you to smear her like this? I discredit her. Kong Ling was immediately furious when she saw Yang Chenrong defending Fang Meng like this. That's because you didn't hear it. Her roommate told me that Nio stayed out all night for several days in a row, and every time she came back, she was very excited. You see, we all live in the same dormitory, and we see each other every time. Why would anyone want to smear her? Kong Ling thought that she had no evidence to support her claim that Fang Meng took the opportunity to find a man, but facing Yang Chenrong's questioning, she had to be tough. Besides, you said Fang Li fell asleep in the private room. Did you see it with your own eyes? Yang Chenrong's eyes froze, and he was speechless after being questioned. There was a large screen between him and Fang Ni, so it could not be considered as seeing it with his own eyes. But if Fang Meng is really like what Kong Ling said, then is he worthy of her? Fang Meng was the woman he fell in love with at first sight. But because the other person was so wonderful, he was afraid to express his feelings. Yang Chenrong's heart was surging with emotions. He couldn't control his excitement at the thought that he could possess Fang Meng. However, when facing Kong Ling, he must not reveal any clues. Okay. He pretended to be impatient and said, that's your best friend, you can say whatever you want. While saying this, he unconsciously stepped on the accelerator to send Kong Ling home as quickly as possible. Mingder Middle School, after Fang Ni returned to the dormitory, she just wanted to lie on the bed and have a good rest. There was no way, she was just too tired. Under the influence of alcohol, sensory stimulation is magnified countless times. She can still remember the scene of Kaixia rushing forward with all his might. No, if she keeps thinking like this, she won't need to rest. Fang Li tried to control herself and stop thinking about this man who was like a devil haunting her, but the message from the other party came at this moment. It was a good performance today, I am very satisfied. Fang Ni touched her still shaking legs and wished she could just throw her phone away. When she thought about having to spend money to buy a new one if it broke, she held back. There was no way. She was a poor woman who worked hard to earn money to support her mother, and she couldn't afford to squander a single penny. As for Kaixia, she just ignored him. However, the other party seemed to have guessed her thoughts and bombarded her with messages one after another. You left in such a hurry that you always forgot to take the necessary souvenirs. I'll keep it for you this time. Don't forget to take it with you next time you come. Chapter 19 I Want to See You. While Fang Mao was still thinking about what the souvenir Kaixia mentioned was, a MMS message was sent to her mobile phone. She clicked it and saw. It turned out to be a pair of light grey silk men's underwear. Fang Ni clenched her fists and clenched her teeth. She knew that this bastard Kaixia would never say anything serious. You haven't replied yet. I see. You must be angry because I didn't take the initiative to deliver the souvenir to your door, right? Then I will deliver it now. The Kai Group is a multinational corporation after all. Is the CEO of a multinational company so idle? Are you so free that you can go to someone's house and deliver underwear to them? No matter what, Fang Li, who was exhausted at this moment, definitely didn't want to see Kaixia himself again. Thinking of Kaixiao's character of doing what he said, she quickly started typing in the dialogue box. Mr. Kai, I have said many times that I don't have the habit of collecting underwear. Please don't give me such things, okay? She just didn't understand. When would she be able to tear off the label of a panty collector from Kaixia? However, she didn't expect that the message Kai Xiao sent her back made her blood boil. Don't pretend, I know you very well. You are a woman who says one thing but means another. If you want my underwear in the future, just tell me. I'll keep them for you. Fang Ni grabbed a handful of her hair and yelled into the phone. Get out of here. She knew that the other party couldn't hear her at all, so she was just venting her anger by doing this. After all, Kai Xiao still holds the lifeline of medical equipment in his hands, and she can't afford to offend him no matter what. There's no need to continue chatting after this point. Now Fang Ni just wants to turn off the phone and have some peace and quiet. What are you howling like a ghost? Fang Meng, you don't want to sleep, but others still want to rest. Ruan Ying originally wanted to take a nap and rest. Fang Meng came in suddenly and started cleaning up with a lot of noise, which already made her very dissatisfied. Now that she had finally finished cleaning up and had quieted down, she was just about to fall asleep when she heard another noise. Who can bear this? Okay, go to sleep. Fang Ni knew she was in the wrong, so she said something nice and was about to press the power button. A pleasant cell phone ringtone suddenly rang, and she thought it was Kai Xiao calling without even thinking about it. This guy, not only is sending me disgusting text messages bad enough, he even dares to call me. Are you done yet? Fang Meng could no longer bear it, and her eyes staring straight ahead looked like they could spew flames. The next second, an awkward male voice came from the receiver. Nyan Nyan. Who made you angry? The familiar voice and unusual tone suddenly sobered Fang Meng, who was furious. She got the wrong person. She looked at the name on the phone screen in disbelief, and she wished she could dig a hole in the ground and crawl into it. No, Yang Qinrong, what do you want to talk to me about? She laughed dryly to ease the awkwardness and changed the subject. There was silence in the receiver. Fang Meng could only hear Yang Qinrong's breathing. After an unknown amount of time, she finally heard Yang Qinrong speak with difficulty. Nyan Nyan, is it convenient for you to come downstairs? I'm downstairs of your dormitory now and want to see you. The pause was thought-provoking, and Fang Li suddenly had an ominous premonition in her heart. Did she hear it wrong? Something seems to be different about Yang Qinrong today. His words are a bit ambiguous. Thinking of Ruan Ying who was still sleeping, Fang Shi lowered her voice and said, Well, I'm really too tired today and don't want to go downstairs. Yang Qinrong, if there is anything, please ask her to contact me by phone. She always remembered that Yang Qinrong was the boyfriend of her best friend. How could she meet him in private? But I don't want to. Lingling is downstairs too. Nan Nan, please come down. Lingling said that if she doesn't tell you something in person, she won't be able to sleep well tonight. What Yang Qinrong said was extremely sincere, leaving Fang Meng no room for any suspicion. Thinking that her best friend would not be able to sleep well because of some unsaid words, she no longer doubted and just responded. Wait for me a moment, I'll change my clothes. Fang Ni tried to move as quietly as possible and tiptoed down the stairs. It was already evening, and the street lights downstairs of the dormitory building had been turned on, emitting a dim light. Fang Li recognized Yang Qinrong's car at a glance. She quickened her pace and walked over, wanting to go directly to the co-pilot seat to look for Kong Ling. But when she got closer, she found that the co-pilot seat was empty. There was no trace of Kong Ling at all. She subconsciously looked for the driver's seat where Yang Qinrong should be sitting, but found that Yang Qinrong was also missing. At this moment, a deep male voice suddenly came from behind her. Nyan Nyan, I'm here. The voice came suddenly, startling Fang Ni. Following the sound and turning around, she finally saw Yang Qinrong. Yang Qinrong, where's Lingling? Didn't you say she was waiting for me downstairs? Why can't I see her? She asked in confusion but didn't think much about it. Because she and Kong Ling have a good relationship, it is common for the three of them to travel together. What do you want to do with her? Thinking of what Kong Ling had said about Fang Meng in the car just now, Yang Qinrong's face suddenly darkened. He hoped that what Kong Ling said was true, but he also felt that what Kong Ling said about Fang Meng was too bad. He felt indignant for Fang Meng. Little did she know that the sudden darkening of his face immediately aroused Fang Meng's vigilance. Yang Qinrong, did you two have a fight? The three of them often went out together, so Fang Ni was very clear about the relationship status of the two. They have a good relationship, how could they possibly quarrel? But Yang Qinrong's expression looked very ugly, so she couldn't help but think that way. No quarrel. Yang Chenrong said lightly. That's good. Fang Meng patted her chest and felt relieved. Didn't you say that you two came here together? Why are you the only one here? Where's Lingling? If Lingling wasn't there, she wouldn't have gone downstairs to stay with Yang Chenrong. Apart from Lingling and work, she and Yang Chenrong have no contact at all. Is she that good? Why do you always look for her when you're with me? Yang Chenrong frowned and moved closer to Fang Meng step by step while speaking. Even though Fang Ni was slow-witted, she could sense that there was something unusual about this action. What you said, she is my best friend, of course I have to find her. Looking at Yang Chenrong approaching her, she backed away nervously. However, just as she took the second step back, her entire body was pressed against the car door. But Yang Chenrong had no intention of stopping. He was about to push her against the car door. Yang Chenrong, what's wrong with you? In a hurry, she stretched out her little hand to block Yang Chenrong, keeping a distance between them. Chapter 20. Where does he get the courage? Yang Chenrong stopped as if he was sober, but when facing Fang Meng, he showed a dazed expression. Nian Nian, it's not Lingling, it's me, I have something to tell you. Yang Chenrong has been secretly in love with Fang Meng for too long. It had been so long that he had forgotten how to express his feelings towards Fang Ni. Facing Fang Meng, he was as nervous as a young boy who confessed his love for the first time. If it weren't for his poor self-control, he would have been at a loss as to what to do. Fang Shi finally understood at this time. She looked at Yang Chenrong and asked, You mean Lingling didn't come at all, right? Yang Chenrong lied to her. Lingling didn't come because he had something to talk to me about. If she guessed correctly, the person who couldn't sleep well at night if he didn't say it out loud was him, right? If Fang Ni was still upstairs, she would still have a choice. But now, she had been tricked downstairs by Yang Chenrong, and with the other party's attitude, she couldn't escape even if she wanted to. She took a deep breath and glanced at Yang Chenrong with indifferent eyes. Yang Chenrong, just tell me what you have to say. She hates being cheated the most. Yang Chenrong calmed down and spoke. Before I say anything, I want to ask you something. You haven't been home lately. Is that true? Ever since she met Kai Xiao, she had been forced to stay out overnight several times, which could be considered as staying out all night. Yes. Fang Li answered without hesitation, but she was confused in her heart. Yang Chenrong rarely came to his dormitory, even less than Kong Ling. How did such a secret topic of staying overnight get to his ears? Fang Mi frowned, and Wan Ying's face suddenly appeared in her mind. That woman made up obscene rumors about herself based on a photo. Such shameless words must have come from her. However, since the news reached Yang Chenrong, Wan Ying was indeed a powerful figure. There is none left. Yang Chenrong tried to suppress his excitement, but the light in his eyes betrayed his true feelings at the moment. Fang Li was confused at once. How come after hearing such an answer, Yang Chenrong not only did not feel disgusted with himself, but instead felt a little excited? Before she could ask any questions, Yang Chenrong's voice came again. Next, I want to verify it myself. What are you verifying? Fang Meng felt puzzled, but saw Yang Chenrong pulling her collar with one hand. Because it was time to go to bed soon, Fang Ni put on a loose pair of pajamas when she came out. When Yang Chenrong pulled like this, the blue marks on Fang Mi's chest were completely exposed to the air. Especially as night fell, the light from the street lamps became more and more dazzling, making the bruises on Fang Meng's body particularly obvious. Kai Xiao never showed mercy to her. Especially when it comes to private parts that ordinary people cannot see, he destroys them even more unscrupulously. In addition, Fang Li had just escaped from Kai Xiao's clutches a few hours ago, and the bruises on her chest were a mixture of old and new, layer upon layer, which looked particularly layered. Anyone with a little experience can tell that these marks are clearly not caused by a single contact. Therefore, what Kong Ling said is true. Looking at the marks on Fang Meng's body, the fire in Yang Chenrong's eyes jumped even more. He even wondered if he could add a layer of ambiguous color between these blue marks. You are such a woman indeed. Yang Chenrong's eyes were extremely bright and he said with great surprise. Faced with such a him, Fang Li felt helpless. What am I like? Ever since she met Kai Xiao, she couldn't even recognize herself when she looked in the mirror. I clearly hate Kai Xiao so much that I wish I could never meet him again. But there were always reasons of one kind or another that inexplicably entangled her and him together. If Yang Chenrong, whom she had always regarded as her brother, saw such a thing with his own eyes, she didn't know how she would feel. Yang Chenrong, I'm Lingling's best friend. You just need to care about what Lingling is like. As for her, from the day her family fell into poverty and her father became addicted to gambling, she knew she had no chance of happiness. Her efforts were just to make her mother's life better, with less pain and more happiness. She never dared to hope for anything else. But I don't want to. No. Yang Chenrong grabbed Fang Meng's small hand and held it tightly against his chest. Nyan Nyan, you know what? I am happy to see you like this. I used to think that there was a huge difference between you and me, and that I was not worthy of you at all. But now, I know that you were once like this, and I finally feel relieved, you know. Nyan Nyan, I am finally worthy of you, so, can we date? Yang Chenrong became more and more excited as he spoke. He held Fang Meng's hands with one hand and put his other hand around her waist. Without saying a word, he held her tightly in his arms. What nonsense are you talking about? In Yang Chenrong's arms, Fang Meng struggled hard. I'm not talking nonsense. Yang Chenrong spoke with extreme firmness. He exerted force with his arms suddenly, and Fang Meng's frail body shook violently with this force. Nyan Nyan, do you know? I have liked you for a long time. Do you believe in love at first sight? That's how I feel about you. From the moment I saw you, I wanted to hold you in my arms and never let go for the rest of my life. That's enough. Fang Meng didn't dare to continue listening to Yang Chenrong's confession. Kong Ling introduced her to Yang Chenrong only after they had confirmed their relationship. In the final analysis, she met Yang Chenrong after he had been dating Kong Ling. This confession is really inappropriate. Yang Chenrong. Who do you think I am? Fang Ni's face turned red with anger, she was embarrassed and incredulous. Please look carefully. I am Fang Meng, and Kong Ling is your girlfriend. You should talk to her about this. Taking advantage of the moment when Yang Chenrong was stunned, Fang Ni exerted force and struggled out of his arms. But the moment she regained her freedom, Yang Chenrong also woke up. Fortunately, Fang Meng escaped quickly and did not fall into Yang Chenrong's clutches again. I know you are Fang Niang, and I also know my girlfriend is Kong Ling. But Niang, can you stay with me? For you, I am willing to break up with Kong Ling. From now on, I will only love you sincerely. Fang Ni covered her ears as if she had received an electric shock, totally unable to believe what she heard. Yang Chenrong and Kong Ling have been in a relationship for 4 years and have been together since they graduated from college. How on earth could he say the word, sincerely, to me with such confidence? Where does he get the face from? Chapter 21. This is her bottom line. After keeping a safe distance, Fang Li said to him righteously, Yang Chenrong, I don't need your sincerity. After all, there is a middleman named Kong Ling between the two of them. Fang Li didn't want to make things too ugly. Realizing this, she took a deep breath, suppressed her anger, and tried to persuade him in a friendly manner. Lingling is a good woman. Her feelings for you couldn't be more genuine. If I were you, I would put my heart on someone who loves me. Even if she was in need of a man, was fickle, stayed out all night, or even slept with anyone, she would never be with Yang Chenrong. Because he is my best friend's man. This is her bottom line. I will pretend that what happened tonight never happened. Take my advice, and be nicer to Lingling in the future. She thought she had made her attitude very clear. But Yang Chenrong looked up at her in pain. So, you don't want to accept me because I was with Kong Ling before, right? I can explain that the reason I was with her was just to get closer to you. Only in this way could I see you more often, and you wouldn't always avoid me and be unwilling to talk to me. But who would have thought that the ultimate obstacle between us would be Kong Ling? Yang Chenrong's face was pale and he pulled the corners of his mouth. The smile was forced and helpless, as if he was pretending to be strong in front of Fang Meng. Yang Chenrong. Fang Miao wanted to comfort him and explain that things were not what he thought, but the other party did not give her the chance. Nian Nian, I mean, if there is no Kong Ling as an obstacle between us, will you agree to date me? Yang Chenrong is crazy now. Or rather, he had already gone crazy thinking about Fang Miao. Now, as long as he is given a chance to be with Fang Ling, even if there is only a slight chance, he is willing to pay any price, not to mention Kong Ling, who he has long been tired of. Fang Li was shocked. She never thought that he would have such an idea. But what if? If Kong Ling wasn't standing between them, would she agree? While thinking, Yang Chenrong seemed to have got the answer, turned around and ran away. Fang Shi was startled and shouted, "That's not the case." The dust raised by the speeding car made Fang Ni cough. Thinking of the way Yang Chenrong looked when he left, Fang Li anxiously dialed Kong Ling's number but hesitated to call it out. "What can I say if I call Kong Ling myself? Your boyfriend came to me late at night to confess his love for me and wanted to break up with you." Who would feel innocent when hearing such remarks? I'm afraid that everyone would feel that they are the third party who destroys other people's feelings, right? The person who tied the bell should be the one to untie it. The problem lies with Yang Chenrong, so I have to explain it clearly to Yang Chenrong. After what happened just now, Fang Li no longer had the courage to talk to Yang Chenrong. She chose to send a text message. "Yang Chenrong, your relationship with Lingling has not been easy to come by, so you should cherish it and don't make a decision that you will regret because of an impulse." Looking at the content of the message, Fang Ni still felt it was not enough. "I already have someone I like, so it's absolutely impossible for me to be with you. Finally, I wish you and Lingling happiness." She certainly didn't have anyone she liked. Kai Xiao had abused herself time and time again, and she just felt that she was dirty, that it was her fault, and that she was not worthy of Yang Chenrong. She really didn't have the energy to talk about emotional hurt. Fang Meng sighed quietly, hoping that Yang Chenrong would listen to her and stop harboring unrealistic thoughts. But even so, Fang Ni still didn't sleep well that night. "I tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep. When I finally fell asleep, I kept dreaming about the moment Yang Chenrong said he wanted to break up with Kong Ling." Early in the morning, Fang Ni yawned loudly in front of the mirror. "It is true that what you think about during the day you dream about at night." She looked at the two national treasure level dark circles under her eyes and smiled self-deprecatingly. Why is she losing sleep over something that has nothing to do with her? When she is in a bad mood, Fang Li likes to listen to music. Worried about disturbing Wan Ying, she put on headphones before washing up. She picked up the powder puff and applied more foundation to cover her dark circles. Her makeup was not yet complete. Wan Ying stood in front of her with a sneer. She took off her headphones out of politeness, but heard the other party's sarcastic voice. "Fang Ni, you are really patient. The loudspeaker downstairs is shouting so loudly, but you, the person involved, don't take it seriously at all. Don't you care about the impact of this matter at all?" Before Fang Miao could figure out what was going on, she heard Wan Ying asking and answering himself. "That's true. As a teacher, you dare not come home at night. You don't even care about your dignity. What do you care about the impact? I am so unlucky as your roommate that I have to live with you." After saying this, Wan Ying turned around and was about to leave. How could Fang Meng let her leave? "Wan Ying, even if you want to leave, you have to explain everything clearly. How could I be so shameless?" Wan Ying sneered as if she had heard some huge joke. "Do you still have any shame? Everyone downstairs is scolding you like this, can't you hear it?" Fang Meng looked at the headphones she had just taken off and put them back on after getting up. She really didn't hear anything. Her attention was instantly diverted, and Fang Ni rushed to the window and listened carefully. "Fang Shi, you slut who seduced my best friend's boyfriend, you dare not take responsibility for it, right? What's the point of hiding upstairs like a coward? Come downstairs if you have the guts, and we'll confront each other face to face. I would like to ask you, what seductive tricks did you use to steal away my boyfriend of 4 years? Is my best friend's boyfriend so good? Are you so lacking in men?" Fang Li's mind was confused for a moment. This voice was very familiar to her. She looked downstairs carefully and saw that it was Kong Ling. She stood at the door of her dormitory building with a loudspeaker in her hand, shouting these unbearable words. But was she the protagonist in her words? Maybe it was because she spoke too passionately. While Fang Ni was just putting on makeup, there were already more than a dozen people standing around Kong Ling, watching, including a colleague who was familiar with Fang Ni. Fang Mai's face turned pale, and she rushed downstairs without caring about the people around her who were watching. She immediately snatched the loudspeaker from Kong Ling's hand. "Lingling, do you know what you are doing? This is where she works. Kong Ling knows how important this job is to her, yet she still comes here and makes a scene." Unexpectedly, Kong Ling didn't know where she got the strength from, and she snatched the speaker from Fang Li's hand, turned it on and shouted. "Oh, Teacher Fang finally came out. Then my shouting was not in vain." Fang Shi then noticed Kong Ling. Her eyes were red and swollen, her lips were dry, and there were some water stains on her face. Obviously she had been crying. So, after receiving his text message, Yang Chenrong still broke up with Kong Ling? Ling Ling, if you have anything to say, can we talk about it when we get back? Chapter 22, Angry and Still Pretty. Fang Meng looked at the increasing number of people around her and couldn't help but become anxious. The breakup between Yang Chenrong and Kong Ling is a private matter. If it is made known to everyone, it will not be good for anyone. Unexpectedly, Kong Ling did not understand her good intentions at all, and instead thought she was trying to cover up something. Kong Ling threw Fang Meng's arm away and yelled, "Why are you going back to tell me? Are you ashamed? Why didn't you feel ashamed when you did that shameful thing? I'm telling you, I'm not going back. I'm going to talk here. There are so many people here, everyone can listen to what's going on and give me some advice. What shameful thing have I done?" Fang Meng felt very aggrieved. It was really a case of the pot comes from the sky while you are still at home. Let me ask you, as my best friend, is it shameful for you to secretly seduce my boyfriend? Do you know that Chen Rong has broken up with me because of you? I can explain about your boyfriend. Ling Ling, we have been best friends for so many years. Even if you don't believe me, you should give me a chance to explain instead of running downstairs of my dormitory and yelling at me so early in the morning. What? You're blaming me? Who is the victim? Kong Ling was so angry that she laughed. Why didn't she realize before that Fang Li was such a shameless bitch? She clearly knew that Yang Chenrong was her boyfriend, yet she flirted with him again and again. Her several hints and warnings were of no use. Is she really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Can't she see that he wants his eyes to grow on her body? The more Kong Ling thought about it, the angrier she became. Even though she knew that Yang Chenrong had been with her in the first place just to be close to Fang Meng, she couldn't stand such humiliation at the moment. Fang Meng, are you a slut? You're so short of men that you even want to steal your best friend's man? I treated you with all my heart, and when I got a boyfriend, I introduced him to you first. Now, this is how you repay me. You shameless thing, I was so blind to choose you as my best friend. Kong Ling spoke louder and louder, and couldn't help but reach out and pull Fang Meng's hair. She and Yang Chenrong had been in a relationship for such a long time, but her heart was still not warmed up because that bitch Fang Meng was hanging around in front of them every other day. Let me go. Fang Li was caught off guard and was pulled by her. There were voices of discussion among the crowd. Fang Meng? Isn't she our second-grade gold medal lecturer in the elementary school? She looks like she has a good figure. How come she is so unpicky when it comes to men that she even snatches the man of her best friend? Oh, you don't understand since you are not in the system. What are gold medal lecturers and silver medal lecturers? It's just a matter of a word from the principal. How can they have any value? Who knows how she got the position of gold medal lecturer? That's right. This woman looks restless. Basins of dirty water were poured on Fang Li, and she didn't know where she got the strength from, but she broke free from Kong Ling. Don't talk nonsense. Fang Ni had a headache. As a teacher, she naturally knew that people's words could be scary. But right now, the most important thing is to solve Kong Ling's problem first. Don't talk here if you have something to say. Come with me. What are you doing? If you have the guts, don't run away. I'm going to tear your mouth apart. Fang Li used all her strength to control Kong Ling. Ling Ling, listen to me. The relationship between Yang Chenrong and I is not what you think. We have nothing to do with each other. I only met him because of you. How could I possibly ruin your relationship? Then tell me, after I sent you back to the dormitory yesterday, did you and Chen Rong meet? Fang Ni was speechless for a moment. If she admitted to meeting, Kong Ling would definitely ask what they talked about. At that time, Yang Chenrong would no longer be able to hide the fact that he confessed his feelings to her and wanted to break up with Kong Ling for her sake. Little did they know that the onlookers who were originally skeptical about the matter immediately made a conclusion after seeing Fang Meng's reaction. Oh, what else is there to explain? Isn't it obvious? Teacher Fang is having an affair with her best friend's boyfriend. She's obviously a mistress who interferes with other people's relationships. Isn't this definitely a green tea bitch, fake sisters? I think what this lady said is right. How cheap must she be to even steal her best friend's boyfriend? Teacher Fang, you have done so many shameless things, aren't you ashamed? If there is a teacher like this in our school, the whole school's atmosphere will be destroyed. Fang Yang heard these unbearable words directly. Just as she was about to open her mouth to defend herself, she was interrupted by Kong Ling. Fang and you don't have to make excuses anymore. Kong Ling took out her cell phone, found a photo and showed it to Fang Meng. Look, we've been best friends for so many years. Do you think I would deliberately wrong you? Fang Li looked carefully and found that what was displayed on it was actually the text message she sent to Yang Chenrong. You? It doesn't matter how I know. Kong Ling suddenly took back her phone and sneered, Fang Niu, what does your crush have to do with my boyfriend? What does my boyfriend and I have to do with happiness? Just based on this message, do you dare to say that you, Fang Niu, have a clear conscience in dealing with my relationship with Chen Rong? Other people's feelings are beyond my control. Fang Meng couldn't help but clench her fists, feeling bitter and sad. She really didn't want to have anything to do with their relationship, but it was a fact that Yang Chenrong wanted to break up with Kong Ling for her sake, and she really couldn't do it with a clear conscience. Kong Ling sneered, a fly won't bite an egg that has no cracks. If you weren't careless and didn't take the initiative to keep your distance, how could you give him hope? Fang Li looked at Kong Ling in disbelief. She didn't expect that she would think of her like this. Ling, I swear to God, I don't have any feelings for Yang Chenrong. From the time you introduced us to each other until now, both of us are innocent. Before Fang and I finished speaking, she heard people around her talking. What era is this? Who still believes in swearing to the heavens? Yeah, I heard that teacher Fang is very promiscuous. She often stays out all night. Now she's even having sex with her best friend's boyfriend. She's really a big shot. The man was speaking seriously, but was interrupted by a sarcastic voice. Ari, what are you talking about? Maybe she is a foreign teacher, Do you know that? Yes, a foreign teacher. Teacher Fang has such a great figure, I wonder if she will teach a student as big as me, har. The laughter became more and more obscene and was simply unbearable to hear. That's enough. Fang Li couldn't bear to listen any longer. She had been holding back until now just to appease Kong Ling, but she didn't expect that this group of people who just wanted to watch the fun would go even further and further. Oh, I'm angry. Teacher Fang looks good even when she's angry. Chapter 23 Suspension. Fang Meng was furious, but she had no way to deal with it. These people surrounded her, and her ears were filled with disgusting and obscene words. She had no way to escape. At this moment, Fang Ni's cell phone rang. Teacher Fang, come to my office within 5 minutes. Principal Wang's voice was filled with rage in the receiver. Even with the receiver hanging down, Fang Ni could feel his anger. Fang Meng gritted her teeth, not caring about Kong Ling and the group of troublemakers, and hurriedly ran towards the principal's office. In the office, Fang Ni stood opposite Principal Wang, feeling nervous. Because she is a gold medal lecturer who has won the award purely based on her own strength, and is a well-known figure in the primary school department of Mingder Middle School. Because she supports the school's enrollment plan, Principal Wang has always been very polite to her. But today, Principal Wang was particularly abnormal, making her feel uneasy. Without waiting for her to ask, Principal Wang pulled out a document and slammed it in front of Fang Meng. My teacher Fang, my gold medal lecturer, look at what you have done. Principal Wang's eyes were like knives, and the other party gnashed his teeth in hatred. Fang Shi suddenly had a bad feeling in her heart. She bravely picked up the document and glanced over the contents, but was dumbfounded. Principal, what's written here is not true. Those rumor mongers are just talking nonsense. Nonsense. Principal Wang tapped the document hard. They've even found out the students you taught, and you're still talking nonsense here. The school has a clear ban on teachers working as foreign teachers privately, but considering that you really need the money, I can turn a blind eye to this. As long as I haven't seen you working as a foreign teacher with my own eyes, I can pretend that I don't know. But Mr. Fang, this is my school. I need to recruit students to make money. Your reputation is so bad now that you have ruined the atmosphere of our school. What do you want me to do? Principal Wang waved his big hand, which just happened to fall on the description of Fang Mo's personal behavior problems in the report document. It said that she disregarded her image as a role model for a teacher and, under the name of Mingder Middle School's gold medal lecturer, she worked as a foreign teacher on the surface. In fact, she engaged in certain erotic transactions with students' parents under the name of a foreign teacher, the extent of which was extremely bad. Fang Meng looked at these words and tears of grievance fell one by one. This is clearly a false accusation. Who sent this letter of complaint? But now, facing the furious Principal Wang, she could only try her best to explain. Principal Wang, I admit that I have worked as a foreign teacher outside. You also know that my mother's illness is very serious. I have also asked the school for advance payment of my salary many times to pay for her medical treatment. I was forced to disobey the school's ban. But I really did not work as a foreign teacher in the capacity of a teacher at Mingder Middle School. And everything written here is false. They are just trying to deliberately discredit me. When Principal Wang heard these remarks, he was so angry that he laughed. Then tell me, what benefit would it bring to the person who wrote the report letter by discrediting you? This made Fang Meng think. She had a guess in her mind that not many people knew that she was secretly working as a foreign teacher, and Fang Ling was one of them. But what if it's not the case? There could be other situations. Fang Shi asked suspiciously, is it for my title of gold medal lecturer? In addition to representing the honor of a teacher, this title also means that the school will give a bonus every year. Maybe someone is jealous. She was thinking seriously, but Principal Wang had completely lost his patience. Okay, I don't have that much time to chat with you. Even if your job as a foreign teacher is excusable, you seduced your bestie's boyfriend. That's low behavior, and the whole school knows about it. There can't be such negative people in the school. I am now officially informing you that you are suspended. Go back and reflect on yourself. Principal Wang was very angry. He trusted her so much that he even put Kai Xiao's nephew into her class. However, he didn't expect that this woman would be so shameless as to do such a thing at the critical moment. With Kai Xiao's ability, he couldn't hide this from him at all. Fang Meng really caused him a lot of trouble. Thinking of this, Principal Wang looked at Fang Meng with more and more disgust. Principal, please don't suspend me, okay? Fang Meng never thought that things would be so serious. She was clearly the victim, so why was she the one who was suspended? You know, my mother is still relying on my monthly salary to save her life. I really need this job. Fang Meng, I have been very kind to you since you entered the school, right? You have advanced your salary many times, did I say anything? But how have you repaid the school? All the things you have done, one by one, are nailing Mingder Middle School to the pillar of shame. Before I completely lose my patience, get out of here. The farther the better, otherwise, I will definitely hold you accountable and make you pay the corresponding compensation. Fang Li's face was pale, and it took her a long time to come out of the office, wiping her tears. Outside the office, many people were gossiping and gathered outside. When they saw her come out, they avoided her like the plague and scorpions, whispering to each other, and no one knew what they were talking about. Fang Ni walked aimlessly. It was impossible to pack up. As long as the school didn't say outright that she was going to be fired, she definitely couldn't pack up her things. She has been suspended from work and can only return to the dormitory. She felt overwhelmed when she thought that Kong Ling might still be talking nonsense to everyone. It seemed that God had heard her prayers, for just as she was about to reach the dormitory building, her cell phone rang again. The call was from the hospital. The balance of the medical expenses that the mother had deposited in advance was insufficient, so she needed to go to the hospital as soon as possible to deposit the money. Is there something wrong with your system? I just deposited 10,000 yuan a few days ago. Fang Li asked in confusion. I borrowed the 10,000 yuan from Kai Xiao by writing an IOU. According to previous charging standards, this 10,000 yuan can last at least half a month, so I shouldn't have to remind myself to pay so soon. The nurse on the other end of the receiver said indifferently, that's what the system tells you. If it's convenient for you, come to the hospital and print out the payment slip. It has the details, so you can know how your pre-deposited money was spent. Fang Meng frowned. She didn't want to go back to the dormitory, so she went straight to the hospital. The bill was quickly printed out. Fang Li looked at the charges on it and compared it with the previous ones. She found that there were several expenses worth over $1,000, which were suddenly added this month. She took the bill to ask the staff and found out that it was money for her mother to use new medical equipment, and the person in charge of new medical equipment in the hospital was named Yang Chenrong. Fang Li thought of this name almost instantly. However, the cooperation between Yang Chenrong and Kai's company still lacks Kai Xiao's signature. How could there be new medical equipment for his mother to use? She went to the ward to ask her mother's nurse, but the nurse couldn't explain the use of this medical device. It was obvious that Yang Chenrong was charging exorbitant fees. Fang Ni dialed the other party's number without thinking. Before she spoke, she took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. Manager Yang, what's going on with those medical equipment usage fees on my mother's bill? Kong Ling and Yang Chenrong both knew Fang Ni's financial situation very well and knew that she was desperately short of money. How could they treat her like this? Chapter 24. The spare tire just became a regular. But I don't want to. Nianiao, you finally called me. Do you know that I have been waiting for this call for a long time? Yang Chenrong's words were full of intoxication. His words were sincere, as if he was a loyal believer of Fang Li. Unfortunately, Fang Li was not in the mood to chat with him and got straight to the point. I just want to know what the medical device usage fee is all about. Your cooperation with Kai's has not yet been formally finalized. Where did you get the new medical equipment? At this moment, Fang Meng was extremely grateful that she was personally involved in this case, otherwise Yang Chenrong had fooled her like this. Given the level of trust she had in him, she would have been sold out and foolishly helped him count money. Yang Chenrong chuckled and said, "Are you doubting me?" "I can't help but doubt what you did." Fang, she said without thinking. "You know, I'm short of money. My mother's medical expenses were barely covered by my salary advance. Now the several thousand yuan of usage fee you see alone is more than half a month's salary for me." What she didn't know was that while she was concentrating on talking to Yang Chenrong, a dark shadow had quietly come up behind her. He pounced suddenly in her direction. Fang Li was pushed against the wall by the man. With her mouth covered, she could only make whimpering sounds. After struggling hard, she finally saw the other person's face clearly. Yang Chenrong. This man was attracting her attention while looking for opportunities to take advantage of her. But when Fang Li realized this, it was too late. She was pressed firmly against the wall by Yang Chenrong. Relying on his absolute height advantage, Yang Chenrong did not give Fang Meng any chance to escape, and she was forced to face him. "If you don't make any noise, I'll let you go, okay?" Yang Chenrong discussed with Fang Meng while gradually increasing the strength in his hands. Fang Li had no choice at all. She nodded repeatedly and finally gained her freedom. "What do you want to do?" She tried to push Yang Chenrong's body, but he was too strong and she couldn't push him at all. The feeling of disgust grew from the bottom of her heart, and she simply couldn't stand it. Yang Chenrong raised his eyebrows and signaled Fang Meng with his eyes. The two of them were in an ambiguous posture at the moment. "Isn't what I did obvious enough? Fang Ni, if you follow me, I will let Auntie use medical equipment for free. How about that? This way you can save at least 1/3 of the medical expenses. It's a good deal, right?" The coaxing tone was extremely tempting. When Fang Ni thought of 1/3 of the medical expenses, the words of rejection were about to come out of her mouth, but she hesitated. How could she possibly think of having anything to do with this man who made her feel sick just by looking at him? The hesitation was because he was thinking about how to negotiate the price with Yang Chenrong so that his mother could use medical equipment, but could the cost be lower? Do you have that much power? When new medical devices are launched, it's time to quickly recoup your investment. You say it's free? Will Kai agree? Fang Li looked at Yang Chenrong suspiciously and snorted coldly, expressing her disdain for him. "My equipment is mine. Whoever I tell will use it, who dares to say no? Why, you still don't believe in my strength?" Yang Chenrong thought Fang Ni was shy and tacitly agreed, so he stretched out his big hand and touched her cheek with infinite affection, but Fang Ni dodged by turning her head violently. "So what if you have the ability? Yang Chenrong, do you really think I don't know? My mother's use of the device this time was directed and acted out by you, just to make me." Fang Meng was a girl after all, and her girlish pride made her swallow back her words subconsciously. "I don't care, just return these fees to me and we can still be friends in the future." "Har har har, Nian Nian, you are really naive. How can I still be friends with you when I am like this?" Yang Chenrong deliberately pushed it with a certain part in a vulgar way. "You don't know yet, right? I have broken up with your best friend Kong Ling. Now you see. I can do anything for you, so you have to repay me with your sincerity, understand?" As Yang Chenrong spoke, he raised his finger and poked Fang Meng's chest. Unexpectedly, Fang Li, who had already reached a point where she could not retreat, changed direction and stretched out one hand between Yang Chenrong's palm and her body, blatantly preventing the other party from having any contact with her body. "What if I don't agree? What do you want to do?" Facing Yang Chenrong's darkened expression, Fang Li asked righteously. "This is easy." Yang Chenrong took the order that had just been printed out from the machine from Fang Meng's hand. She showed Fang Enai the page with the expenses she had specially marked. If you don't agree, you will be responsible for paying the money later. You're despicable. Fang Meng never expected that Yang Chenrong, whom she had known for so many years, would turn out to be such a person. He clearly knew that she earned very little and it was very difficult for her to support her mother's medical expenses, but he still deliberately fiddled with the medical expenses to make her pay more to the hospital. You are indeed a teacher. Yang Chenrong smiled with satisfaction. Even when you curse at people, you're so cute. Niani, what should I do if I like you more and more? Like it more and more? Fang Li sneered. After this incident, she saw the person in front of her more and more clearly. After learning about Yang Chenrong's true face, she only felt disgusted when she saw this person. Taking advantage of the other party's days, she exerted force and broke out of the enemy's encirclement. Give up, I will never give in to you. She loudly announced that she was leaving, but her mother's caregiver was attracted by the sound. The nurse had been in the ward and could only hear Fang Enai talking but could not catch the specific content. He thought the other party was calling him. When he hurried over, he found that there was a man standing opposite Fang Enai. The man had delicate skin and tender flesh, and his every move was very elegant, with a strong scholarly air. She had met this man many times, and he was always extremely considerate to the patients. However, judging from his relationship with Nian, they were not that close. This time, the two of them were hiding in the corner, standing there mysteriously, and were a little flustered when they saw me coming. Could it be? Nian, are you and Mr. Yang together? I have long felt that you two are a perfect match. I am very anxious that you two are not together yet. The nurse winked at Fang Meng in an ambiguous way, but his eyes couldn't stop glancing at Yang Chenrong. Auntie, you misunderstood, Fang Meng was interrupted by Yang Chenrong before she could finish her explanation. Auntie, you have a really good eye. You saw through me when I was just a spare tire and became a regular employee. Chapter 25, Insolent. The nurse was delighted by the praise. Seeing that things were about to develop in the direction that Fang Li hated the most, she quickly said, Auntie, don't listen to his nonsense, it's not like what he said. Ever since Yang Chenrong threatened her with her mother's medical expenses, in her heart, he was not even a friend, let alone a boyfriend. Unexpectedly, Yang Chenrong used his strength to hold Fang Enai in his arms, leaving only his back to the nurse. He then turned his head and said in a shy tone, I had an argument with Nian, and she's very angry. Don't listen to her nonsense. The nurse and Yang Chenrong looked at each other, and finally said ambiguously, I know, girls always say one thing and mean another. Just be patient when you coax them. Before leaving, she still remembered to mutter to the other party, don't be embarrassed, Nuno. You are not young anymore. It's not a good thing to be single all the time. Mr. Yang has apologized to you. Just calm down. Auntie, you really misunderstood. Fang Enai was extremely anxious, but faced with the ambiguous look from the nurse, she couldn't find any reason to refute. Because at this moment, no matter what she said, the nurse would only regard her refusal as a quarrel between a young couple. She struggled to break free from Yang Chenrong's restraints, but saw the nurse patting her shoulder with one hand. Okay, don't be embarrassed. Auntie is going back to take care of your mother. You two can chat slowly. The nurse left without giving Fang Enai a chance to explain. Yang Chenrong, like a winner, took the opportunity to hold Fang Meng's wrist and pulled her into his arms. Don't waste your energy. No one will listen to your explanation. Let me go. Yang Chenrong didn't want to confine her, so Fang Enai struggled free with just a little effort. Give up on this idea. Even if the whole world says you are my boyfriend, I will never acknowledge you. We are just colleagues in a medical device company now. Apart from that, we have no other relationship. So please stay away from my mother's ward and don't come here again. Thank you. Fang Li turned and left without hesitation. Because she was busy making money, she hasn't spent enough time with her mother for a long time. She tiptoed to her mother's bedside, carefully pulled over a chair and sat down, then reached out her little hand, took her mother's calloused hand and pressed it against her cheek. The nurse who came out of the bathroom saw this scene and considerately left the ward, leaving the quiet space for the poor mother and daughter. Fang Meng's mother was pale, her eyes were closed, and her skinny body lay weakly on the bed, like a puddle of mud. When Fang Li saw her mother like this, she only felt heartache. She stretched out her other hand and gently stroked her mother's grey hair, tracing the deep wrinkles on her mother's face with her fingers along the hairline. My mother's name was Jiang Xiana, and as her name suggested, she was gentle, virtuous, and beautiful when she was young. That's why she was chosen by the two elders of the Fang family, which was once considered a wealthy family, and married into the Fang family. But now, at the age of less than 50, her mother has already aged beyond recognition. Time flies. She has been working hard to earn money to support her mother's medical expenses for 4 years. Even if being suspended from school is difficult now, it won't be more difficult than when I first entered the society, right? Fang and I stretched out her mother's palm and pressed it against her cheek. The warm temperature passed into Fang and I's skin through the calluses on her mother's palms that had not yet faded, bringing her infinite peace of mind. Mom, you will be fine. We will definitely get through this stage. Suddenly, a sudden cell phone ring broke this warm scene. It's the nurse calling. Ms. Fang, have you checked the medical bill? I've checked it. I'll renew it as soon as possible. Thank you. The moment Fang and I hung up the phone, her eyes were full of determination. She had already received several months' salary in advance from the school, and she didn't know when she would be able to work again, so she would definitely be out of money in the short term. As for the medical device company, it should be possible to get a considerable commission if Kai's case is successfully negotiated, but now the case is still pending, and it is unknown when the money will be paid. Fang and I was troubled as she looked at the only 1,000 yuan in savings she had left. Even if I don't eat or drink, I can save some medical expenses for my mother. 1,000 yuan is just a small amount. Especially now, I have rejected Yang Chenrong. With his vindictive character, he will definitely tamper with my mother's medical expenses. Kai Xiao's face suddenly appeared in her mind. The last time Kai Xiao transferred 100,000 yuan to her, she only used 10,000 yuan, and there was still 90,000 yuan in her account. But she couldn't use other people's money without knowing the reason. If she wanted to use it, she had to make it clear to others. Since she has already written an IOU to Kai Xiao, then it should be no problem for her to borrow some more money, right? After all, with Kai Xiao's status and position, no one would take the small amount of money he borrowed from him seriously. Thinking of her mother's unsustainable medical expenses, Fang and I found Kai Xiao's number and pressed the dial button nervously. After the beep, the other party quickly answered the call. Hello, this is Mr. Kai's personal phone number. I'm Secretary Sun Yinzu. Mr. Kai is in a meeting now. After the meeting, can I tell Mr. Kai to call you back? A strange male voice came from the receiver, and Fang and I suddenly realized how presumptuous it was for her to take the initiative to call. As the president of Kai Group, Kai Xiao has too many things to do. How can he answer his phone calls at any time? Sure, thank you. After hanging up the phone, Fang Li took a deep breath. Her nervous mood was barely relieved, but was overwhelmed by endless uncertainty. Will Kai Xiao lend me the money? 10 minutes later, a text message was sent to Fang Ni's mobile phone. See you at XX Hotel at 8 p.m. Looking at the number that had no remarks but was extremely familiar, Fang Li's mouth twitched, revealing an expression that was neither funny nor sad. The funny thing is that Kai Xiao replied to her, so there is hope for borrowing money. What made me cry was that the two of them met and made an appointment in a place that made people imagine, a hotel. But now Fang Li has no choice at all. As long as Kai Xiao was willing to see her, let alone a hotel, even if it was through fire and water, she would choose to meet him without hesitation for the sake of her mother's medical expenses. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Fang Ni arrived at the hotel on time. Before she could ask which room Kai Xiao was in, the service staff took her into the presidential suite. In the dim room, only a small goose yellow light was on, warm and ambiguous. Unlike before, the hotel room was filled with the scent of red wine, mellow and sweet, which made people intoxicated just by smelling it. Chapter 26, Self-Degradation. Fang Li recognized the person lying on the bed at a glance. She bit her lower lip and cried out hesitantly. Boss Kai. Kai Xiao was half leaning on the bed, wearing a large white bathrobe. He was obviously a very serious person, but for some reason, when he glanced over, he always gave people a strong sense of aggression. Fang Shi lowered her head subconsciously, not daring to look at the large area of exposed skin on his chest. But even with just a quick glance, the distinct Adam's apple and collarbone were still imprinted in her mind, making her involuntarily recall the feeling of unconsciously nestling in his arms when she was exhausted. Kai Xiao raised the corners of his lips and chuckled, as if he had noticed her embarrassment. His dark eagle eyes glanced at the wall clock. Teacher Fang is really punctual. I took the initiative to talk to Mr. Kai about something. The concept of time is basic respect. Fang Li coughed lightly, and after calming down her complicated mood, she spoke. Kai Xiao raised his eyebrows and looked at her. So, you want to talk to me now? When he learned from Sun Yanzu that Fang Meng had called him on her own initiative, he couldn't believe it. This woman has always wanted to keep a distance from me, so how could she take the initiative to come to me? It was not until he saw Fang Meng walk into the room with his own eyes that he completely believed it. Things must be discussed, but he has the final say on what they are about. Come over. Fang Li's face was slightly stiff. She stood stiffly by the door, not daring to move. Kai Xiao found it funny. People had already come in. It was probably too late to be reserved now, right? Is this how Teacher Fang talks to me? Fang Ni bit her lip, thought for a moment, and sat on the sofa opposite the bed. Kai Xiao sat up from the bed and patted the empty space beside him ambiguously. Come sit down, you can talk about anything you want. It was a position very close to Kai Xiao, so close that Kai Xiao only needed to stretch out his arms slightly to hold Fang Ni in his arms. Boss Kai, I'm here for serious business. Fang Li's eyes flashed with shame and anger, but she thought of her purpose and said, I know Mr. Kai has a big family and is not short of money, so I came to borrow money from you. This time I need to borrow 20,000 yuan, and this is the IOU. She slowly stood up, took out the IOU she had prepared long ago from her bag, and placed it in front of Kai Xiao. Once the bonus from the medical device case comes in, I'll have the money to pay it back. Kai Xiao looked at the neat and beautiful notes on the piece of paper and narrowed his eyes slightly. She even asked for an IOU for 20,000 yuan. This woman really knows how to insult people. There were countless women who wanted to climb into Kai Xiao's bed, except for this one. After they became intimate, she even had to write an IOU for money. 20,000 yuan is not enough for me to have afternoon tea. Don't you think it's troublesome? He leaned forward, stretched out his long arms, and while the other party didn't react, he pulled her hard and pulled her onto the bed. Teacher Fang is very naughty. Do you think I'm willing to see you just for this little money? You should know clearly what I want. His thin lips touched her ear, and Kai Xiao laughed softly, and the Teacher Fang that came out of his throat was full of infinite ambiguity. The slightly rising ending tone seemed to have a hook, stirring the forbidden strings hidden deep in Fang Meng's heart. Her face was flushed, her heart was beating fast, and her whole body was trembling. At this moment, Fang Miao just wanted to cover her ears and hide in a corner. But Kai Xiao just wasn't what she wanted. He ripped open her collar, and with a ripping sound, the buttons fell to the ground under his force. "R!" Fang Li screamed and subconsciously tried to cover up, but Kai Xiao grabbed her wrist. The hot and wet breathing of varying degrees of intensity sprayed onto her exposed skin. Tiny bumps suddenly appeared, and Fang Li felt that all the hairs on her body stood up. You let me go." The moment Kai Xiao approached, her body began to tremble and become limp uncontrollably. Even though she spoke very toughly, her little hands that were pressing against the other's chest could not exert any strength at all. There is only one possibility for this performance. That is, her body has completely surrendered to all kinds of touches from Kai Xiao, and she has become addicted to it. All the blood in her body rushed to her scalp. Fang Meng felt that her body, which had been burning hot just now, had become extremely cold in an instant. She was so shameful to Kai Xiao. This isn't right. How could she stoop so low? Realizing this fact, Fang Ni's eyes turned red and she felt self-blame and ashamed. But at this moment, Kai Xiao followed her soft and weak strength and let her go. If you don't want to sit next to me and talk, shouldn't I charge you some interest? Kai Xiao smiled, and the arc at the corners of his straight mouth, coupled with his handsome face, was definitely an infinite visual enjoyment. But in Fang Mi's eyes, this hateful man was like a cat that had successfully stolen some fish and was licking its paws with satisfaction, ready to steal again when she was not prepared. The two of them distanced themselves from each other, and the buttons of Fang Meng's white shirt fell to the ground, revealing a large area of white on her chest. Coupled with her messy hair and pale face due to the struggle, she looked like a broken doll. Kai Xiao looked at Fang Meng like this, and the flames in his lower abdomen suddenly rushed up. Thinking of the soft and wonderful touch of that place, he now just wanted to pounce on her like a hungry wolf and ruthlessly tear off the last piece of covering her body. "Have you collected all the interest now?" Fang Li said as calmly as possible. Facing Kai Xiao's green eyes, she was able to finish this sentence without running away, which was already commendable courage. It's all done, let's talk business. Kai Xiao felt a little regretful. He hadn't seen Fang Ni for a long time, so he naturally wanted to tear her into his stomach. But he didn't want to force her every time. He thought of a more interesting idea. Kai Xiao picked up the IOU with one hand, waved it in front of Fang Li's eyes, then clenched it into a ball in his palm and threw it casually. Fang Meng opened her eyes wide, watching the IOU she had written so carefully being treated like this. Anger welled up in her. When she turned around to look at Kai Xiao, she saw that he was already lying flat on the bed, with his long, straight legs crossed and stretched out, his long arms bent and resting behind his head, looking very leisurely. I prefer to pay with my body rather than with money. Kai Xiao's tone was light, but his dark eyes shone with a meaningful sparkle. The deliberately raised ending tone clearly revealed Kai Xiao's interest in Fang Mo. He also didn't know what was so charming about this woman Fang Li. As soon as I touched her, my body felt like it had taken medicine. I just wanted to possess her madly, bully her, and make her cry. In short, he gave his first sexual experience to her, and then he couldn't stop himself and only wanted to have sex with her. As an adult, Fang Ni knew very well what sexual compensation meant. But what is the difference between this and selling? Chapter 27. Stop crying and continue. I refuse. Fang Li said this very firmly. Kai Xiao, I am indeed short of money now, but I won't sell it. I just need money urgently now. Don't worry, I will definitely pay you back when I have more money on hand. Kai Xiao looked at her proud and straight back, his patience completely exhausted. Why did she think that he would agree to it if she proposed it? In her heart, what did she think of herself? Kai Xiao narrowed his eyes, thinking only of shattering her dignity. What if I don't lend it? Fang Shi was stunned. She had never thought about this question. She subconsciously thought that a big shot like Kai Xiao would not care about such a small amount of money at all, so naturally there would be no option of not lending it. But now, since it's a loan, you can't force me to buy or sell. You just threw an IOU at me as soon as you came. Why should I listen to you and accept it obediently? Fang Shi opened her mouth and suddenly found that she seemed to have no idea what to do. While she was stunned, Kai Rong stretched out his long arm, put his arm around Fang Meng's neck and pressed hard. Fang Li fell onto the bed unexpectedly, and her body as heavy as a mountain pressed down on him. With a ripping sound, the annoying chest covering cloth was torn off, and Fang Meng's beauty was completely exposed in front of Kai Xiao. Teacher Fang, you seem to have forgotten that according to you, I am the creditor. A deep voice sounded close to her ear, like the whisper of a devil. Fang Ni lay on the bed like a wooden man, with moisture quietly forming in the corners of her eyes. Crying. The two of them had been affectionate more than once or twice. The first 2 times, Fang Ni was bullied by him and cried, but it was obviously different from now. Those beautiful eyes were full of water, yet empty. This realization was like a bucket of ice water poured over his head, extinguishing all the flames in Kai Xiao's body. He liked Fang Meng, who was crying and begging for mercy on the bed, but he didn't like emotional little women. Kai Xiao turned sideways and lay beside Fang Ni, stroking her messy hair with one hand. His round fingertips touched Fang Ni's skin with the warmth of Kai Xiao, and it seemed to open the door to her emotions. Thinking about what I had gone through in the past few days, tears of grievance poured out like a flood. Her teacher was suspended from work, the equipment company's case was stalled, her hospitalized mother's medical expenses were delayed, and her best friend, who had always been as close to her as a sister, turned against her because of a man and went to the school to brazenly throw dirty water on her. The letter of complaint sent to the principal completely cut off her only stable source of income. It seemed as if everything was against her, and all the sufferings came together and hit her all at once. She really wanted to be strong, but for some reason, after being touched by Kai Xiao, she couldn't help it. Seeing Fang Meng's tears falling like abacus beads, Kai Xiao, who had seen all kinds of big scenes, felt truly panicked for the first time in his life. You tore my underwear. Fang Meng accused. Kai Xiao looked in the direction of her eyes that were sparkling with water. On the white bed sheet, the underwear was torn so violently that the sponge was exposed, and it was bunched up in the corner like a torn rag. That's it? Just a pair of underwear, and it made Fang Ni cry like this? Fang Shi sniffed and said aggrievedly, I just spent $100 to buy it, and I wore it less than 3 times. Kai Xiao took a deep breath. What on earth did he do to make this woman cry like this for a piece of underwear worth 100 yuan? It's just a piece of underwear, is that a big deal? How come? Don't I need to buy it? Or should I go out naked without wearing any underwear? Fang Li's accusations made Kai Xiao feel a different kind of feeling in his heart. This woman, why didn't I realize she was so cute before? Then I won't tear it anymore. Tearing clothes was not a special hobby of his, it was just that he was too impatient when facing Fang Meng. After meeting Fang Meng, he felt like he had taken the wrong medicine. His previous calmness and restraint disappeared completely, and only one thought remained in his mind. Kai Xiao sighed and gave in, a rare move. I'll be gentler next time. The word gentle had never appeared in his dictionary, but when facing Fang Meng, this word suddenly rushed out of his throat. Fang Li's face turned red instantly. What nonsense are you talking about? What about the future? Is she going to be entangled with Kai Xiao forever? Fang Li couldn't imagine it, so she pushed Kai Xiao hard with her little hand, but when she found that she couldn't push him away, she moved back a distance. Fang Meng's coquettish look was so adorable that he was about to explode. Don't cry anymore? If you don't cry, then continue. You are shameless. Fang Meng's angry voice was silenced by a pair of hot red lips. Kai Xiao finally realized his idea and started a crazy invasion of the night. Don't are. Fang Li struggled, trying to explain the situation, but it went against her will, and she could only passively endure everything. One hot night, one crazy night. When she woke up the next day, the room was in a mess, with pieces of her clothes scattered all over the floor. But the man who caused this chaos disappeared without a trace. Fang Ni felt the temperature around her and found it was already completely cold. What is she thinking about? Realizing the loss in her heart, Fang Miao raised the corners of her mouth and revealed a pale smile. You are so shameless. Do you really think others will have feelings for you? A person like Kai Xiao could just be playing with her, how could he be serious? On the contrary, she, when she was on the verge of emotional collapse, let down her guard because of a touch from the other party. Fang Shi couldn't help but pat her cheek with her hand, thinking, wake up. You are just Kai Xiao's plaything, and you will be nothing after the novelty wears off. You don't even have the qualifications to mention such a disgraceful identity, yet you are shamelessly thinking about it. Just then, the cell phone rang and Fang Ni startled. 7 o'clock in the morning. Oh no, morning class is about to start. Fang Ni sat up as if she had been electrocuted, and felt pain in a painful part of her body, but she quickly reacted. She has been suspended and does not need to attend morning classes. After getting up from the bed and washing up with her weak body, Fang Ni saw a big gift bag with a transparent sticky note stuck on it. Compensation for your clothes. The handwriting was so vigorous and flamboyant that just by looking at the words, one could feel how arrogant and domineering its owner was. Fang Li curled her lips and raised her hand to tear off the sticky note, but she had an indescribable feeling in her heart. I'm used to Kai Xiao's overbearing and unreasonable attitude, caring only about his own happiness and never considering other people's feelings. I didn't expect that he actually had this side. But Kai Xiao, could he be such a careful person?